Welcome in to a Wednesday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, live, driven and powered here by Go Chevrolet. Struggling to get up the hill this morning on the stream, but we're up and moving here. We'll make sure and have you tightened up for Mikey Matuk's Mic'd Up coming up at 11 o'clock this morning as 11 to 1. They will roll over on the Mic'd Up YouTube station. Make sure that you are subscribed and notified to what's coming up over there. We appreciate you starting your day with us. Make sure and hit that like button, share button, comment button. Jump inside of the YouTube chat app. We got a busy show for you this morning as we will go to Tuscaloosa here in about 25 minutes, and we'll talk to former LSU basketball head coach John Brody, now a part of the LSU Sports Network. He'll be on the call tonight for LSU Bama. That'll be a 6 o'clock tip-off. We'll watch it live for you, or with you, here on the network, as we will be up in the watch room at FM Digital Media. First half, Lloyd will be there. Noah will be there. I'll be there in the second half as little J tips off at 6:15, so hopefully I'll show up somewhere around halftime or right around the start of the second half to watch the duration of LSU Alabama from Coleman Coliseum as the Tigers look to get back on track tonight against a pretty stout opponent in Alabama. The record is down. They are not ranked, but they still have the players, and they play the same way that Nate Oates and the Tide have been accustomed to playing underneath his leadership. We'll talk about Jaden Shackelford and Javon Quinterly and the rest of the Tide coming up here with former head coach John Brody of the LSU basketball team coming up at 7:30 this morning. At 8 a.m., Brody Miller will be here. Miller's got a great write-up on the LSU football team and the difference they're making on their roster right now with the transfer portal. We'll talk all about the transfers and some of the newest names that are starting to pop around the portal and LSU football with Brody Miller. We'll talk about the coaching staff being rounded out by Cortez Hankton and a couple of the other additions there to Brian Kelly's staff. All of that coming up at 8 a.m. this morning. Then we'll take a look at the Saints offseason with Nick Underhill from New Orleans.Football. Saints are heading into an offseason and a draft where they are out of the playoffs. We'll talk about Sean Payton's strategy with Nick Underhill coming up here at 8:15 this morning. As always, as we say, we appreciate you being here and starting your day with us. So if you don't mind, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that comment button, as we'll be here with you until 9 a.m. this morning as the Jordy Culotta Show rolling on. Driven and powered every day by Go Chevrolet. Go Chevrolet with a couple of locations, of course, in LaPlace, South Louisiana, right there near New Orleans. If you want to stop in and see them for a brand new car selection in LaPlace, stop in and see Go Chevrolet. And then Go Express Auto Sales with another great selection of used cars. If you want to stop in and see them today. Nick Richard, Lee Carney, and the rest of the crew at Go Express and Go Chevrolet. GEAUX Chevrolet.com. Our official spice is Papa Earl's, 30% less sodium than the competition. Wherever you shop locally, pick up Papa Earl's at High Neighbor, Rouse's, Calandro's, all over the place. And then True Blue Water, TRUBluewater.com. And all of our guests, as we said, Brody Miller, Coach John Brody, and Nick Underhill are compliments of Metropolitan Health Group. Real doctors, real solutions. Charles Harvey, Jason Ramazan, all of our friends over at Metropolitan Health Group are in for bringing you our phone line guest today. So welcome to this Wednesday, as we've got a lot to get to. Gordon McKernan doing work in the NIL space. We will talk about that as we saw a couple of new Tigers inking deals with G over there at his palatial office located off of I-10 right there near College Drive, as we saw Kyron Lacey, Greg Brooks, who transferred in from Arkansas. Lacey, of course, from UL Lafayette and Thibodeau High School. And then, of course, Miles Frazier, one of the big offensive linemen that LSU was able to grab in the transfer portal for this offseason. As LSU has made some waves, man.
Gordon's going to have a full office, dude.
They will. They will. He's going to have a list, a roster over there. And don't forget about guys like Jacoby Matthews and Trevante Citizen that LSU still knocking on the door for. But yesterday, we saw a couple of more guys come through. Mekhi Garner is a defensive back from Louisiana who's been pledged to the class. And then Mekhi Wingo, who is a freshman defensive lineman over at Missouri who had a pretty good season with the Tigers, is transferring in to LSU. Tremont Shorts of East Tennessee State was another name yesterday that popped in the transfer portal, one of the earliest offers from LSU into the portal was to Tremont Shorts of East Tennessee State, and they were able to get the commitment from Shorts yesterday. So LSU has done a tremendous job of trying to restore the talent, and that's what we'll talk to Brody Miller about at 8 a.m. this morning here about just some of these new names. But if anything else, man, the offensive line has been paid attention to. And with some names like we just told you with Shorts and Frazier, Miles Frazier coming in from FIU, and Tremont Shorts, as we said yesterday, pledging. And then you've got guys like Emory Jones and Will Campbell already in the boat. Bo Bordelon is already committed to the class and signed with the 2022 recruiting class. Offensive line is going to be better next season. They'll still go through some struggles because they'll have some young guys playing on there, specifically Jones, Emory Jones, and Will Campbell. But look, man, they've paid attention to it. And I saw yesterday Anthony Bradford on Twitter. I don't know if anybody saw his post, but Lloyd, if we can find that and post that to the show. Bradford has had a really good short off season here, as far as gaining some weight, losing some weight, losing some bad weight, and gaining some good weight, and that he was detailing on his Twitter account yesterday. So the offensive line, in my opinion, is going to be better, and they have to improve. They have to improve for LSU to be competitive just as far as SEC and football goes next season. I mean, that is a group that has been turned over a ton over the last couple of seasons, and hopefully they can get some stability there. As we said, Brian Kelly, Major Burns was here for our national championship watch party, and he said LSU's about to go to work in the transfer portal. And since Major Burns and Jack Besh and Jaquelin Roy have left the watch party for the national championship, LSU's done some work in the transfer portal, as the names that we gave you. And then they got some good news from some guys that were on the roster. We told you yesterday about Jeray Jenkins and Jay Ward announcing that they were coming back, and Cam Wire. And then yesterday afternoon, Micah Baskerville, LSU linebacker, announces on his social media account that he's going to be coming back for his fifth and final year. He'll have that COVID senior year available to him that he'll take advantage of. So that was a big piece of news for LSU. Not only do you get a experienced guy coming back on the defensive second level at linebacker, but you get somebody hopefully that you can count on as a leader in the locker room. Jeray Jenkins is somebody that we said fit that bill, feels like a number 18. Baskerville has played a ton of football for LSU and has been in Baton Rouge and in that locker room for a while now. So his presence next season, with as many new faces as they will have and be counting on, will be a breath of fresh air for Brian Kelly and the staff.
Who do you think the biggest get to return to that so far? Or I would say either biggest returner for LSU or biggest name they've gotten in the transfer portal for you.
I think Jay Ward's the biggest guy that they've gotten back, who announced yesterday that he was coming back officially to LSU. And I think in the transfer portal, it's got to be one of these offensive linemen. I think if you turn on the tape of Miles Frazier, he's a player. I mean, he's a day one starter. I think he's actually probably going to be your left tackle and gives you the opportunity to probably play Will Campbell at right tackle to kind of cut his teeth in the SEC before he slides out to left tackle for probably a 2-year run.
They're still looking for a center, right?
Still need a center, but they may have somebody on roster that you can transition into a center, right? Or hopefully. But, Tremont Shorts, they picked up yesterday, I know was one of a guy on the transfer portal list that was very high on their board, high on LSU's board, as far as guys that they really wanted to get. Miles Frazier, as you saw, the emphasis that they put on Frazier with him inking the NIL deal with Gordon McKernan. I mean, that's stuff that's being talked about in recruiting and stuff that's coming through for LSU to get players. So, I think that one of these offensive lines, just because of the need that you have in that position. I mean, look, Kyron Lacey's going to be a stud. Noah Kane is a big-time player. I even think the defensive lineman that you picked up yesterday from Missouri in Wingo is a guy that's going to step in and play some really good and add some quality depth on that defensive line that we've talked about for a while. I mean, Greg Brooks seems like he's a guy that's coming from Arkansas that they're going to miss, a guy that wore the C on the sleeve for Arkansas. So obviously that's a hit and a takeaway. Jay Bramblett's been one of the best punters in college football over the past couple of seasons.
2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, they've got 2 of the top punters in the last couple of recruiting cycles, with Bramblett, the number 1 punter in 19, and Peyton Todd, the number 1 punter in 2021. So LSU's done a tremendous job in the transfer portal, man. They're still shy of numbers. They're still low on numbers. So, I mean, still they have work to do, and I don't know how much to expect when National Signing Day comes here in a few weeks on that first Wednesday in February. Obviously, Jacoby Matthews, Trevante Citizen are guys that are very high on the board. But, I mean, there's still guys out there that they're going after. The big tight end from Westgate, who we've talked about a couple of times. Is it Danny Fields?
Danny Lewis.
Danny Lewis, I'm sorry, who had a really good senior season, is another guy that is expected probably to choose LSU on signing day. So there's still work left to be done for LSU, but right now they've got 10 transfer commitments in the boat for LSU. I mean, that's an incredible job of Brian Kelly and his staff getting on campus and really going to work. I mean, Frank Wilson deserves a ton of credit, but even guys like behind the scenes, like Brian Polian and Cortez Hankton in a short time has done some really good work. I've heard some really good things about Joe Kane, the defensive line coach early on. So new names, new faces for LSU as they sit atop of the transfer portal player rankings right now.
I wonder who had to slap this together. Like, they didn't have this last year. Like, we got to do at 247. Like, we have to do a ranking system.
Well, I mean, there's so many players that are on the move.
Because I'm sure they did. Obviously, they do like recruiting rankings every year. But then they had to get somebody on staff to be like, well, now we have to put together transfer portal rankings like we do for recruiting. So it's just been a wash for everybody that works in this business. You have to adjust everywhere. We've talked about Billy Napier adding people literally to his staff just for the portal. Now you have people at 247 that have to work strictly on the portal just to get articles out. But it's nice to see LSU atop the list.
Yeah, it is. It is really incredible work. I mean, like Major Burns told us a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago during the national championship broadcast about how they had gotten the message. Even the current roster had gotten the message that the coaching staff was about to do a lot of work in the transfer portal. I mean, that has obviously been what LSU has been up to over the past couple of days and weeks. Is I mean, you obviously see it, the amount of players that have transferred in and the guys that are really taking notice of what Brian Kelly and the staff are doing right now. I see some people talking about Miles Brennan in the transfer portal, and I do believe that was a big get to return to school. As Jeff Marson said, it's amazing how many people are overlooking Miles Brennan. I don't know if he's overlooked as far as like the guys that are coming in and making an impact, but I mean, this is an honest question. And I'd imagine that there was some type of discussion between Brian Kelly, maybe even Mike Denbrock, and the offensive staff and Miles Brennan. But you can't come out and promise somebody the job for the year, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure some type of commitment was made to Miles Brennan to give him every opportunity to start for LSU next season. But are we all sold that Brennan is going to be the every down quarterback for LSU all season? Because I'm not. And I do believe that he is a big get in coming back because of the depth and stability that he provides to you at that position. But I'm not ready to say that he's better than Garrett Nussmeier next season for the full year, right, of Nussmeier's second year in college football. I do believe that he is big for what LSU is doing right now as far as trying to stabilize and apply some veteran experience on the roster. He's enormous. But I'm not prepared to say, nor am I in the state of mind where I believe that Miles Brennan, A, is guaranteed to be the starter at LSU, and B, if he is, can hold the job for the entire season. Because I believe at some point, Nussmeier and his talent is going to rise to the top, and you're going to be stuck in a predicament where you say, what do? Do you play the veteran guy who has had some ups and downs, or do you play the young guy who has shown signs of being really, really good, but he's shown signs that he can make, some young player mistakes?
It feels like Brian Kelly. Well, Doesn't Miles Brennan fit more of what Brian Kelly wants to do at LSU, at least in his first year? I don't know if he wants to have to groom somebody like Nussmeier, who is so, I don't want to say mistake prone, but he's a play away from either throwing a touchdown or throwing an interception. And that doesn't seem like a play style that suits Brian Kelly. He's going to want Miles Brennan, who's kind of stable back there, able to, I want to say been there, done that, but that's not really the case because every time he gets out there, he gets hurt. But somebody that has a little bit more of a veteran presence, a little bit of a leadership role, he'll probably, want to start like leading workouts, do stuff like that. So it feels like Miles Brennan fits more of what Brian Kelly wants to do, at least in his first year. I
agree. And I agree with that assessment. I believe that, a senior, somebody who understands protecting the football, somebody who understands what the game plan is not going to take as many chances, as many gambles as a guy like Nussmeier would with the football. I think that very much suits who Brian Kelly is, especially in year one at LSU. I just don't know if Nussmeier has the type of talent that you can keep on the bench for a year and a half or 2 years in a row. I just don't. I don't know if he is. I don't think that he is that type of player. I think he's too good where you're going to have to at some point say and probably believe
he gives you the better chance to win.
5 gives you the better chance to win.
But if it goes back to the conversation that Miles Brennan and Brian Kelly had to have, right? There had to be some sort of communication that made Miles Brennan feel like he didn't even really explore the transfer portal. I don't know where he would have gone. I don't know what his options were.
Well, Southern Miss was trending, right?
Right. So if you give him the option between LSU and Southern Miss and how much Miles Brennan loves LSU, you might not have had to guarantee the starting job, just the fact that he'll get reps in competition. He'll say it's an open competition. If you feel like you're better, you can come in and win the job because you're kind of playing into Miles Brennan's love for the Tigers, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you give him the opportunity, he's coming back.
No, I agree. I think that Miles Brennan loves being an LSU football player.
He always has. An LSU fan.
He's always loved being an LSU football player. He's always wanted to be an LSU football player. So I think if, the head football coach at LSU was urging and wanting him to come back, that he would very much, bite the bait.
Right.
In the sense of, right, like there's no guarantee that he's going to be the starting quarterback, but he loves LSU. And if LSU football says, hey, man, we need you, like the program needs you. Well, I don't know that Miles Brennan even, like if it's out of LSU and Southern Miss, is there really a choice?
Right.
Like
it's almost harder to go to Southern Miss for him. He's so set up in Baton Rouge, right. Like he's engaged. Like his fiance is here. Has access to the 50-yard line whenever he wants it. He gets to kind of has carte blanche at Baton Rouge. If he goes to Southern Miss, he has 1 year to start over and kind of, I guess, re-ingratiate himself to Mississippi, and he's from there. But to have to go back and restart and have to do all that nonsense again, it's just not worth it probably in his mind.
Jonathan Millar, Nussmeier showed nothing last year that indicated he's ready to start. He's very erratic and not that accurate. Miles will start all season unless he's injured. Mark Cumby said Nuss is too green. Brian Burgess says, I don't see Nussmeier transferring, with a lot of some of the posts above that talking about Nussmeier on his way out. I agree with what Jonathan said, that Nussmeier didn't show anything last year that makes you say he's got to be the starter next year, but I do think that the reps that he got last season in that role that he was in, kind of a can't-lose situation, is something that he will grow from, an experience that he will take into this offseason and really learn a lot from. Whether or not he should have been redshirted or they should have played him in the bowl can all be debated, but he did play nearly 4 games of reps, or got action in nearly 4 games of play, that I think really is going to help his offseason and maturity going into year 2. I think that you take those circumstances and scenarios that you saw against, teams like Arkansas when he played extended minutes, and while it wasn't by any means start to finish really good, there were high points, but there were a lot of low points, stuff that you can coach off of, right? So I expect Nussmeier to take a step and a development in growth from year 1 to year 2. If it's enough to get him on the field is still to be debated. They still got to go through spring ball. They've got to go through fall camp. They've got to, go through a new coaching staff and really find their way and see who fits in on the field with what they want to do. I think Miles Brennan right now is quarterback 1. I don't think that that's up for discussion. But I do think when it goes onto the field and games start to be played, that, it's not going to be an open and shut case that Miles Brennan, in my opinion, is the starting quarterback every single week at LSU. I'm not ready to believe that. I hope he proves me wrong. He deserves this season. He deserves the chance to be the quarterback at LSU, and hopefully he can grasp that, keep a hold of it, and maintain it all year, because he deserves it. For everything that he's been through, as much love as he has for the university and the program, I hope that he succeeds in year 5 at LSU. I'm just not ready to believe and bet on that the time is now. And I'm not saying that Nussmeier has this talent that you got to keep off the field. I don't know if Brennan is good enough to solidify that position all year. And I wonder if Nussmeier is good enough to mature and grow into a quarterback that can handle the pressure of playing in the SEC in year 2 away, in year 2 of the program. I don't think that it's a closed door argument that, Brennan's the guy all year.
But you saw Nussmeier make a run at Max Johnson, and Max Johnson, for everything that he had to go through a little bit with the LSU offense and what they were trying to do, he was as steady as they come. Essentially, like, it didn't look as good as you maybe hoped, as maybe you wanted it to, but he was still able to kind of right the ship and play well, especially when he had Kayshawn. He was throwing for 300 yards a game. Like, he was throwing 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, Max Johnson was playing pretty well considering the circumstances. And then even the allure of what Garrett Nussmeier does, just because his game is so different than what the other, essentially what those other two have to offer. Miles Brennan and Max Johnson kind of play the same position, just Miles Brennan has a much stronger arm.
Yeah.
But the mobility factor, I would say Miles Brennan has less of that. And so Garrett Nussmeier almost becomes even more attractive because the mobility is just going to be such a stark contrast to what you're going to see at practice every day. And when you see where college football is headed, I mean, this is pretty obvious at this point. Having a guy that can move back there is kind of an ace in the hole at this point.
We will go to Tuscaloosa, and we'll pick up this conversation here shortly of some of the transfer portal news and what's going on with LSU football. I believe I said Joe Kane, who was the quarterback on the program, when referring to Jamar Kane, who is the defensive line coach at
seat at the
LSU.
table for both.
That's right. Kane is able, if I remember the Heisman pitch from the ECU Wolves on the program. Daily, we're brought to you by City Cafe, citycafebr.net. Get in touch with Squeaky Miranda. That's right, lay on the train tracks the night before the game. Squeaky Miranda, Cody Miranda, and the crew. Great charl grilled oysters over there. Great raw oysters and lunchtime specials every single day over at City Cafe, citycafebr.net. O'Neill and George O'Neill, they've been in business for 100 years, literally. Started in Plaquemine in 1918. Still in business today. City Cafe, Squeaky Miranda. Great food, great fun, where good friends go to meet. Where good friends meet at City Cafe. Find
What year?
1918.
Right after the war. Interesting
know that.
time to open.
Yeah,
Right after World War I, huh? Had the Spanish flu, right? If you can survive those two things, you can stay in business, cuz.
City Cafe.
A little history there.
Okay.
Watch
I'm
out.
not buying in, though. I don't know if that's
When was
all.
the first text message
I don't know if
sent?
that's all true.
You know when that text was sent?
92.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, John Brady next from Tuscaloosa. We will talk to John Brady from Tuscaloosa as he gets ready for tonight's tip-off between Alabama and LSU. Nate Oates versus Will Wade, ESPN, national television.
Need to get Tessitore on the call.
We will ask Brady, yeah, right, a little
Be
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights.
We will talk to Brady next here from Tuscaloosa on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet every single day.
Friday Night Fights.
Papa Earl's, the fine spice, originating right down here in South Louisiana by our guy Mark Pop Norman. Developed it back in 2018 and won Amazon's Newcomer of the Year in 2019. They pride themselves in having 30% less salt and sodium than the leading brands at the same price point. You can find them locally. Look for Papa Earl's at Rouse's, Calandro's, Mathern's, High Neighbor, and more.
Rico Delgado, there's no debate. Listen to Kelly's interview before they talked about the accents in the bowl game. Yeah, I hear you, Rico. I mean, it's one thing to say it now, and I think that's what he told Miles Brennan in recruiting, but then you got to get on the field. You know what I mean? Then you got to go to spring practice.
And don't act like these LSU fans won't turn on Miles Brennan as soon as something bad happens. So don't you defend him now, and we'll see where we are later.
Well,
you know
look,
how these people
I
get.
understand that. I
Yeah.
mean, by all means. But, I mean, to say one thing 3 months before spring practice and 7 months before the season, 8 months before the season, is easy to do on a national broadcast. But then you got to get on the field, and you got to see what happens.
You hadn't seen him play.
All right, tonight on the court is going to be LSU Alabama, and it's going to be a good one, man. On ESPN, this thing's going to tip off at 6 o'clock from Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa. LSU looking for a bounce back. Alabama looking for a bounce back. Tide fell to Mississippi State, who Coach John Brady told us, I believe a week and a half ago, that Mississippi State was really making a run at becoming a consistent and very competitive group in the Southeastern Conference, and they look like it as they took care of Alabama at the hump on Saturday. Tigers fall to Arkansas at home in that same time slot, and now they'll square off against each other tonight. On the call, on the network, will be former head coach, SEC legend, Final Four 2006, and now a part of the LSU Sports Radio Network, John Brady, a good friend of our show. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing good, Jordy. You guys good?
Yes, sir. Doing well. LSU Bama tonight. Before we get to this matchup, take me back to Saturday against Arkansas, that 9-minute stretch at the end of the game where LSU scored a bucket. I know offensively they have struggled this season, but what did you see in that stretch that really kind of took them out of their comfort zone?
Well, I think Arkansas guarded LSU pretty well. I think they made Days tough to catch, and when he caught it, they're right up there on him, and they forced him to put it on the floor and try to make a play. And down the stretch, I think they got on Eason's right hand a little bit and made him turn back left and try to do some things. He's really good going to his right. He broke through on that dunk with the right hand dribble. I think for the most part they tried to make him go back to his left, and then they made some big plays. I mean, they hit some shots. I mean, I don't think Keith Smart, as good a guy as he is, wanted his worst three-point shooter to hit the biggest shot of the game from the top of the key. So it was just one of those things where Arkansas made some plays. They made a uncharacteristic three-pointer that the guy was 3 for 19 going into the game that hit the biggest shot of the game, in my opinion. And then, LSU didn't make the plays that they normally make down the stretch. And I'm going to give you a stat here now. It's something I've been looking at, and I think people have kind of ignored. Auburn shot 26 free throws against LSU, made 17 for 65%. We lose that game. Kentucky shoots 20 free throws against LSU, made 10 for 50%. Tennessee shot 37 free throws against LSU, made 23 for 62%. Florida shot 22 free throws, made 11 for 50%.
Wow.
We win those three games with teams shooting really poorly from the free throw line. Arkansas shoots 18, makes 14 for 77%, and we lose. I think the foul line tonight for LSU is going to be important. We've got to defend them well and not foul them and put them on the free throw line as we've done. Now, I know LSU fans think they think the Tigers never foul, but over those last 5 games, LSU has put the opponent on the free throw line, I think, a little bit too much. We're not going to be able to foul Alabama here in Tuscaloosa if we're going to win this game.
What do you do when your team is struggling from the free throw line? LSU was shooting it pretty well from the free throw line at the beginning of the season, but they're going through a stretch right now where they're kind of in a funk. From a coaching standpoint, when your team's struggling for the line, how do you handle that?
Well, I never made a big issue about free throw shooting. We would put them demands on them and hold them accountable in the practice for what they didn't hit a certain number, but I never made a big issue of it. We always shot them. And I never made a big, because I think that offense and shooting the ball is so fragile anyway. And I've always had the mindset that you compliment on offense and you criticize on defense. And I never made an issue of it. We just shot them. We held them accountable in the practice. We did our routine. And, good shooters for the most part may have a bad game or two shooting it, but for the most part, they're going to make the free throws they need to make, hopefully at the right time.
Obviously, I think Xavier Pinson's impact on the team was highlighted over that 9-minute stretch that we talked about in the first question versus Arkansas. But from a coaching standpoint, what do they miss without him? When he's not out there, what are they lacking?
Well, I think he has the ability to get the ball in the paint. He doesn't turn it over. He makes free throws at the end of the game. I think his whole demeanor, he has a calming effect, I think. He doesn't get too high or too low. He's kind of pretty steady, and I think particularly in games in the league, the last 6 or 8 minutes, I think LSU misses his presence. He's a good enough defender, and he's experienced. And he doesn't have to make a play to feel like he's contributed to the team in terms of scoring the ball. He can make a play and just help somebody else get a basket, and then he can get fouled and go to the free throw line and make them. And this game tonight also, Jordy, Alabama, in my opinion, needs the three-point line. Alabama has shot 500 threes in 17 games. LSU has shot 356. Alabama shoots 33s a game. And in their 3 losses, Alabama is shooting 28% from the three. I think Alabama needs at least 34 to 35% from the three tonight to beat LSU. And I think if LSU can keep that number down from a percentage standpoint, because LSU over the course of the year is giving up 26% from the three. And if we can get them around 30%, I think that'll certainly give us a great chance to win the game.
Tigers got the #1 defense in college basketball, Coach. They seem to do everything well on that side of the court, but when specifically guarding the line, the three-point line, how good are they there?
Well, they're leading the country, 26%. And if they can jump on Alabama tonight, the key too is continue to play good defense, but don't foul Alabama and put them on the free throw line. They're a 76% free throw shooting team. They need the 3-point line, and they need the free throw line tonight to beat LSU. But they've lost 3 in a row, and we're going to get their best shot. This place will probably be crazy. Alabama needs to win this game. They can't give up another game at home. But Alabama's a team, as you know, if you've looked at their schedule, they can beat Gonzaga and they can beat Houston, but they also can lose to an average Memphis team. Yeah. They also can lose to Davidson and give up 92 against Missouri. So they've been all over the board. Let's just hope we can keep them off the three-point line, don't foul them carelessly or needlessly, and come out of here with a win tonight.
How do you handle a player like Days, where he's your leader, he's your senior, he's your guy that you count on so much, but he struggled the last time out? How do you coach him in between Saturday and tonight?
Well, Darius Days, he's an emotional kind of player, and and I think with guys like that, you don't do much to them. You just talk to him and tell him what he needs to do. To me, when he was good at Florida, he scored 2 early baskets in the paint. Yeah, and I think he's influenced by scoring it early and the ball going through the hoop. And I think the best way to get him into the game is try to get him something early. Talk to him about getting something early around the goal to make him feel good about himself, and then his game can spread out from there.
Coach, Will Wade brought up an interesting subject yesterday when talking about Tari Eason, and it's something that I didn't think about in kind of watching the game, but as a coach, I wonder, when you have a player like Eason who comes on like he has, where he maybe surprises some people in the beginning of the season, now he's the focal point of game plans. Now teams and coaches are really kind of going into the game with a game plan to stop him. Right. How do you see his game adjusting as that has happened over the last couple of weeks?
Well, that's something he's going to have to get used to. Be careful what you wish for.
Right.
I'm sure he wanted to be the best player and lead the LSU in scoring. I think that was something he may have in his mind, as all players do. And if you emerge to be the best player on the team and the focal point for the other team to concentrate, you just got to pick up your game. And he's where he is because of what he's done. Now, can he keep that? Can he keep doing that now that he's become, as you said, the focal point of other teams trying to stop him? So he just got to keep playing and realize that they're going to come at him and try to stop him. And so he just got to keep his game going and meet the challenge. You
mentioned it a little bit, but Alabama obviously led by Jaden Shackelford, who has played pretty good against LSU over the last couple of years, as he's averaging 14 points a game going into it. He's a 3-year starter. What do you see from this Tide team? What's the challenge tonight?
Well, like I said before, take them off the 3-point line. They're going to shoot 33s a game. In their 3 losses, they're shooting 29 threes a game in their losses, and the ball hadn't gone in. You know, I know all you young guys are into analytics, but if my team's shooting a bunch of balls that aren't going in, they're not going to shoot many of them. We're going to shoot some from somewhere else. But you know, the analytics say keep firing them, and well, they're firing them, and they've lost 3 in a row. But also, they've lost 3 in a row by 12 points, so it's not like they're getting crushed. And they do have the number 1 ranked schedule in the country this year, according to all these people that compute that sort of thing. But I think the 3-point line is important for LSU to take them off the 3-point line. I think it's important for LSU to defend them well without fouling. Don't put them on the free throw line. And if they can do those 2 things and just be even on the glass, I think LSU can win the game tonight.
How have you liked the development of Brandon Murray, Coach? A guy that missed some action against Auburn and you really lost and saw his presence missed out there, but a guy who I believe can probably stabilize you from an offensive standpoint if he either shoots it more or shoots it consistency. What are you seeing from him?
Well, I think he's a really good freshman. He's got a great body. He's a great defender, excellent defender. He understands the game, and if you watch him in practice and you're around him, he's got a nice IQ about how the game should be played and what he should be doing there. He takes open shots. He takes good shots. He's good off the bounce. I just think he's a solid player, and he's just finding his way offensively where he fits on this team. And I think the more he plays and the older he gets, and the good thing about him too, he's not going in the draft. So I think he's going to be a player at LSU that's going to be here 2 or 3 years, and he's going to be fun to watch. And he's going to give LSU fans an opportunity to see him get better and better each year.
Coach, you mentioned LSU and the fouling, and obviously that's kind of what their defense is based on, is being aggressive and getting turnovers. Is there anything that they can do differently maybe when they're on the road to kind of quell some of those fouls and getting people in early foul trouble?
Well, you know, you play defense with your feet and not your hands. Now, LSU does lead the country in steals, averaging a little over 12 a game. Yes, so they need to keep doing that, but they've had some careless fouls, 15, 20 feet away from the basket that I think get some of these guys in foul trouble, particularly Reed. He needs to be really careful about fouling carelessly or needlessly, as I used to call it all the time, and keep Alabama off the line, because we have been called for fouls in the last 5 games, and people have outshot us from the free throw line in terms of attempts. Now, they hadn't made some, but you can't count on teams shooting 50% and 55% from the free throw line and coming out with a win, particularly on the road. So you just got to move your feet, be smart, defend aggressively with discipline, and I think that's a key to what LSU needs to do tonight.
Coach John Brady, he'll be on the call, 6 o'clock tip-off in Coleman Coliseum with LSU basketball versus Alabama. Tigers 15-2 on the season as they look to bounce back after their just second loss of the season on Saturday as they fell to Arkansas. Tigers look to bounce back tonight. Make sure you check that out on the LSU Sports Radio Network. If you're going to watch it on television, turn the sound down and turn Chris Blair and John Brady up, as they are a must listen to LSU basketball. Safe travels this week, Coach. A couple of road trips. I'd imagine that as a coach, a week like this is a good opportunity to kind of bring your group together, kind of galvanize the group. You're going to be 2 games away from the Maravich Center.
Well, this is a big week for LSU, and it's a big game for Alabama tonight. Then we go to Tennessee, and it's protecting the home court, and a successful season. And a significant season, the difference in having a significant season is being able to win close games. And hopefully we can at least split this road trip and come back home with our heads up.
Have a great call tonight, Coach. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You got it. There he is. Coach John Brady checking in from Tuscaloosa this morning as the Tigers and Tide tip off tonight at 6 o'clock in Coleman Coliseum, a place where historically LSU basketball has struggled, but a place tonight where they're probably taking the better team in. They've got the better team, so we'll see how it plays out. Remember, Daily, we're brought to you by RMB Builders. Whatever sound you miss here on the Jordy Culotta Show can always be found and brought back to you by our friends over at RMB Builders. Rhett Bourgeois and his crew, rmb-builders.com is where you can find them online. If you're looking for a custom design home that you want to build from the ground up, or if you're looking for some handiwork done around the house. So if you're looking for a restoration and rebuilding a project, get in touch with RMB Builders, even commercially licensed over there at RMB Builders, rmb-builders.com. As you can see that website, a fantastic website, easy to navigate, takes you through some of the projects that have been started and finished by RMB, and you can really see the fine work over there by the crew, by the experts. Rhett Bourgeois and his crew. Get in touch with them today. rmb-builders.com is where you can find them online. rmb-builders.com is where you can find them online. Find them today and tell them you heard it right here on the Jordy Culotta Show.
LSU catching 4. Going into Alabama, over under 150.
Wow.
Which is very high for an LSU game. And LSU catching 4. That's another little Vegas. They might know something we don't.
Desperation from Alabama.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well,
and maybe, I guess, the status of Pinson.
Yeah. And if Alabama wins, it's because they score 90 points.
Right.
Like, it's because they just light it up from 3 and score 100.
Yeah.
So you're saying if LSU loses, they get run out the gym, the 4 don't matter.
Not that they get run out. It's just Bama's going to score a lot of points.
90 to 80.
Yeah.
It's tough to fathom LSU getting blown out just
Right.
because of how good of defense they play. But when you got a desperate team at home who shoots the ball with the capability that Alabama does, they're not making the threes that they were, especially that they were making last season. I mean, they were making an incredible amount. Who's our guy with the Pelicans now?
Herb Jones.
Yeah, Herb Jones, who was
Herb?
was a sharp shooter for them.
Steal of the draft.
He was. Was he? Was
How
he
are the
undrafted?
Pelicans
Second
doing,
round
dude?
pick. They're playing well. They dropped one to I don't remember who they played.
Boston.
Boston. Yeah, they dropped one to Boston, but they're playing well.
Yeah. But as we said, Alabama not shooting it as well as they did from behind the line last year. As right now they're shooting it at a 31% clip, which is not good, at least nationally. I mean, that's ranked 240th nationally. They are scoring 81 points a game, so something does have to give from an offensive defensive struggle tonight, or at least an offensive defensive type program tonight, where you look at Alabama and they come in scoring a lot of points, and you look at LSU, who's struggled on the offensive side but dominant on the defensive end. They do everything well. LSU does everything good on defense. Maybe defensive rebounding has fallen back a little bit. And one thing that Alabama does well is offensively rebound. They give themselves a lot of second chance opportunities off of these missed three-pointers that they're shooting. I mean, they're jacking up these threes, and they're getting these long rebounds, and they're being able to either put it back or knock down mid-range jump shots to, kind of establish this scoring barrage that they've been able to go on to average 81 points a game. But LSU's bringing in a defense that they hadn't seen yet, even against the likes of Gonzaga and Memphis and high-end teams that they've played throughout the non-conference schedule. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And then you've got the Nate Oates and Will Wade storyline. Yeah. Of course, that every time these two take the floor against each other, they want each other's neck. So it'll be interesting to see the emotion around tonight's game.
That's probably Will Wade's biggest rival, I guess, in the coaching ranks.
Personally,
yeah, because it's not Calipari.
No,
it feels like Nate Oates and Will Wade are both vying to be the next Calipari, kind of in the SEC.
Well, they also, they're the same person.
Right.
I mean, like outside of kind of like, Nate Oates wearing custom designed suits and
Will Wade's in the tracksuit.
Will Wade just kind of.
I love this thing. Did you know how comfortable I am?
Right. I'm never going back to this suit.
You might take a fine for this
which is
suit.
how I would. I mean,
like,
dude, get me out of this
Bobby
suit.
Huggins.
Get me out of this suit. Yeah, Huggins was like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I'll take the fine.
Pre-COVID, he was like, this ain't happening. Give me a pullover and some sweatpants, and I'm in.
He was the Zoom coach before Zoom. He was like, wearing the basketball shorts and with the suit. He's like, I'm just not going to do this, guys. Y'all can figure it out. I'll take a fine, whatever. I'm wearing the sweatsuit. And Will Wade is in that same, let me just coach basketball. I don't need to wear all this.
I'm trying to call the game, man.
It's like James Bond. How can you do all that in a suit? You can't be running around like that looking that good. I don't get it. I don't know what it's made of.
I agree with you. All right, coming up here in a couple of minutes, we're going to talk to Brody Miller about LSU football, the offseason here, how much...
Probably still writing that article.
How much success the Tigers have had in the transfer portal here as of late, what to expect next. We'll ask him what he thinks about the LSU quarterback room next year, but something that we were talking about before we talked to Coach Brady. But just, how secure are you that Miles Brennan is the the year starter
You want me to pull it?
for LSU football. Yeah, for sure. It's a good one. I think it's definitely a debate on what's going on. Chili, Jordy, what are you hearing on the basketball recruiting front? Chili, they're cleaning up. They just got a 5-star earlier this week. Julian Phillips, and then they have Marvell Allen.
He tagged Marvel.
That's what I'm saying. He's
like
definitely
Marvel,
going with
like
that.
Avengers in
NIL.
the tweet. Yeah.
NIL.
Cool. If he gets a Marvel deal out of this, hey, Gordon, that's territory I don't even know if you can punch in, man.
But LSU doing a great job right now is on the recruiting trail, and then like some of these guys that you're going to get back, I think Efton Reed has realized he's got to come back, maybe not for just next year, but maybe another year to get his strength up to play in the NBA. Brandon Murray,
he's coming back
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that really the only one that's on the fence right now would be Tari.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Because Will Wade keeps kind of pointing to that. He says like he understands how much people are enjoying this year to this point, but every press conference he makes a point to like, look, fellas, down the road,
right,
this team is going to be everything you think that we have this year. He's like, this is even close to what the finished product is, because all the guys that y'all think are good, they're freshmen.
Yeah.
Like imagine Brandon Murray next year, Efton Reed next year, with 2 more 5-stars that are certainly going to play. Eric Gaines is going to come back. The only person that you really think is going to leave is Tari Eason.
Right.
And then you have 2 5-stars, and you can. I don't want to say you can replace Tari Eason, but he's a luxury at this point. He was scoring 8 points at Cincinnati, and now you have him at LSU. He's
His
the
game's
lottery
totally
pick.
changed.
Totally changed.
Yeah.
Game's totally changed.
They have to be watching at Cincinnati going, what were we?
Yeah,
what are we doing? What were they using?
Why was he on the block?
Playing this guy like he was George Mikan.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
post him up.
block to block. Offensive rebounds, putbacks, the only way you'll score here.
Put your foot on the block and your ass back.
Hayden
Cough
Paris,
the ball.
mock depth chart has Savion Jones as 3rd on the chart at strong defensive end. Do they not know Jordy evaluated him as a first rounder? I get you, Hayden. I know you're keeping scoreboards on everything we're talking about, bro. And I mean, I appreciate it very much. And we're going to miss some for sure. But I promise you, one we ain't going to miss on is Savion Jones. He may not be a first-round pick, but he will be a pro, and he will play at LSU. He's sitting behind a lot of studs right now. He's sitting behind some studs right now. It looks like Ali Gay came back. He was in school yesterday, so if he's not made up his mind right now, he's trending coming back to LSU. And then B.J. Ojulari, who Mel Kiper's got in his top 5 of draft picks right now. He's sitting behind a very talented room, but the talent is there with Savion Jones. And it took him a while to kind of catch on to the college life and to life on campus. But I stand by what I say that Savion Jones will be a pro and will be at some point will be a dominant football player for LSU. To come back when that happens, Hayden. Make sure you keep score on everything else we're saying, bro. I appreciate that. Our fact checker. If I put you on staff.
Put him on staff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Hayden, we can start keeping your give us your scoreboard. We'll keep score with you also. We'll see how this goes. No, I'm kidding.
We're good. Keep scoring us though.
Noah, did you see Deion Smith on campus? Any chance? Any reports of where he was?
I did not.
That's a good question.
Because he would have had to have gone to class, right? Oh, he didn't have to. Syllabus day, dude. He could skip that thing. I mean, if
just are we enrolled?
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Do athletes have syllabus day? Do they get to? They have to be first day. I guess first day, Brian Kelly, you're not missing class. Or else you might be in the portal, dude.
You would have moved.
God,
Various days was in class.
I mean, maybe the only one that could pull that off would be Brennan. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, coach, I'm not going to class. Okay, all right. Chill out, dude.
As long as you're not fishing out there, MB, we're good. He was hunting this weekend, so it makes me nervous.
Brian Trureau, Lloyd, what's the deal on the website audio? We'll get that fixed.
It's up right now. It's up right now.
It's up right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Hayden, I will. Thanks, buddy. We appreciate it. All right, hour 2 coming up next here. Remember, we're brought to you by Falaya Real Estate, falaya.com, online. Get the app at Falaya Real Estate, whether you're on your Apple, Android store. Keep up with all the listings over at Falaya Real Estate. Brody Miller next. We'll reset here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. We'll talk LSU football next here as we'll bring in Brody Miller. He was talking a lot about the transfer portal that LSU has had success in. And then we'll talk to Nick Underhill at 8:15 this morning. Get a look on the New Orleans Saints offseason. Where are they looking at the draft? At what position of need are they looking at to get some help in the draft? And what this offseason is going to look like from a quarterback standpoint. If you've got any questions for Nick Underhill, if you have any questions for Brody Miller, jump inside of the chat app. We appreciate you being there. Make sure you like, share, comment on the post as we'll be back with you right here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.
Brody took his first Adderall yesterday. He wrote that article. Unbelievable. But thank you for what you do, Brody.
Do you have questions about your finances? Are you looking for recommendations from a skilled financial advisor? Get in touch with our friend Daniel Newman over at Edward Jones. You can find him easily by logging online and shooting him an email at daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. That is daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. Whether it is help with your 401k or just fiscal advice heading into the new season, get in touch with Daniel today. Best way to do it? Email him, daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. He's our experienced financial advisor. Let him be yours, daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. Gearing up for spring and summer down here in South Louisiana, and you want to keep your lawn maintained during these sunny seasons, get in touch with our friend Blake Abear over at Abear's Lawn Maintenance, where he says, you grow it, I mow it. 225-485-8022, 225-485-8022 is where you can find Abear's Lawn and Maintenance, the official lawn and maintenance company of the undisclosed location. Go Chevrolet is proud to announce Go Express Auto Sales, the new used car lot located in the capital city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at 11522 Florida Boulevard. Go Express Auto Sales is online at goexpressautosales.com, or you can search them on Facebook and social media at Go Express Auto Sales, the newest addition to the family of Go Chevrolet. Remember, Go Chevrolet is located down in LaPlace, Louisiana, but now welcoming aboard Go Express, the new used car lot located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at 11522 Florida Boulevard. Welcome back here to a Wednesday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Couple of really good articles have been published over at The Athletic. Hopefully by now you have heard Brody Miller on this show enough where you know you've got to subscribe to The Athletic to keep up with the cutting-edge news that they are delivering over there, especially around LSU football. Brody published one last night, which is a look how Coach Brian Kelly is using the transfer portal to rebuild LSU on the fly. 11 commitments from the portal to LSU, and LSU continuing to do work in this offseason. We bring in Brody Miller now. Make sure that you are following him on Twitter, on social media, to keep up with all the latest from The Athletic. And get over to The Athletic and make sure to subscribe here for 2022 if you want to keep up what's going on. Brody A. Miller on Twitter and joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Good morning, man.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. How are you guys?
Absolutely. LSU.
I'm sorry, Brody. Congratulations on your first book, man. Great publishing job there.
Wait, what?
I said congratulations on your first book with that article. My God, it was the longest of long forms.
Oh yeah, my editor sent me a sassy message. Like, really?
Dude, I read it word for word. I mean, you really can't put it down because of the information that's packed in it on where LSU has had so much success in the transfer portal. And a couple of weeks back, Brody, we had a couple of guys over here for a watch party, a national championship watch party. Major Burns, Jaquelin Roy, and Jack Besh came through, and Burns was really emphatic on how much work LSU was about to start doing in the transfer portal. Little did we know that they were about to go on this barrage of commitments and players that were paying attention to LSU. Why so much success, in your opinion, before we start getting into some of the names and what's left for LSU?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think, to some extent, there's just a simple, less interesting, boring aspect of, hey, LSU is, a top recruiting destination anyway, and then you add in that, they have tons of openings across the roster. LSU's probably going to do pretty well in that department. It's probably a good sell. But further than that, I do think there's Kelly and his staff did a good job there in terms of I gather Brian Polian was kind of made the point person on that, and I do think he's kind of taken charge and done a pretty good job there. And then on top of that, I think you got to shout out a lot of the personnel guys, Will Redmond, J.R. Belton, and so on. Guys who really have taken charge, putting the numbers together and whatnot. And what I gather talking to people is Kelly does have, in most programs, to be fair, but a pretty clear model of scholarship-wise and all these things of just the overall roster breakdown he wants it exactly to look like. And also there's an element of, I think they're trying to kind of rebuild the culture a little bit here and get rid of some guys who maybe were headaches and bring in some guys who are the right guys and whatnot. And point being, I think they had a plan in place, so at least a good bit of one. So I do think they did a really good job of kind of pinpointing needs, attacking those needs, attacking, hey, this guy is Louisiana connection, this guy is a connection to Robert Steeples, all that. And then on top of that, like I said, I think LSU's just a kind of obvious pitch for a lot of these guys.
We got a couple of questions coming in for Brody Miller. We'll let those build up and get to them at the end of this segment. So make sure and hashtag Ask Brody if you want any questions specific to Miller, who covers LSU here for The Athletic. Obviously, the offensive lineman that they picked up yesterday from East Tennessee State in Tremont Shorts is one that they were early to offer. And offensive line has been a point of emphasis. They got Miles Frazier, they got Shorts, and they got a couple of big-time players in the recruiting cycle. How much better or improved do you expect that unit to be next season when they take the field against Florida State?
The balance to answering that is if I compare it to how good it was a month ago, I think it got drastically better. If I compare it to, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better than October of last year or whatever. But this was an offensive line in dire straits. I mean, the 2022 offensive line looked like a disaster. So to be able to bring in a guy in Miles Frazier, first off, who freshman All-American, one of the highest graded Pro Football Focus tackles in the country. I mean, a really good player. And now you have 3 more years of eligibility with him. That's a home run. And then with Shorts, I think he's a little interesting too because he only has 1 year left, right? But he's a consistent FCS All-American, clear guy who's good enough to come in and play. And I talked to people who on the staff who basically were saying, Shorts, yeah, he's helping us year one on the field, but they were saying he's also just like a really good kid and a really good character guy. And they were kind of going out of their way to mention, like, even more than on the field part, he's just going to be an awesome guy to bring in there for that room and kind of, build that back a little bit. So I do think there's a lot of value there. It was funny. I saw in one of my comments this morning in the story, they were like, man, if either of these guys are starting LSU, we're in trouble. And I'm like, what line have you been watching? In what world are all conference guys at FAU and FCS All-Americans not good enough? Like, LSU's offensive line is not necessarily better than Group of 5 lines lately. I'm sorry, it's just kind of the truth.
Pulling in guys from the Ivy League.
That's not kind of the truth. That's the absolute truth. I mean, accept it. Brody Miller joining us here from The Athletic. A couple of names that people have been curious about over the last couple of days, and not want to put you on the spot is if you have gotten any knowledge on them. Allie Gay, Deion Smith, the status of those guys and where they are right now?
Yeah, so Allie Gay, he has not obviously come out and said anything, but I've heard relatively confidently. I don't want to be the guy coming out and reporting somebody's decision before they make it,
sure.
But I have gathered he is expected to stay. Everything has been indicating he's staying. And shoot, I mean, if you even just want to read between the lines, like you look at his Twitter, it's a lot of kind of NIL type stuff he's been doing on Twitter lately. So either I've heard he's expected to stay, which obviously that is massive. Suddenly this D-line doesn't drastically even drop off from last year. I mean, obviously losing Neil Farrell and Glenn Logan's brutal, but it's going to be a really good defensive line. And then I just completely blanked on the second name. I'm so sorry.
Deion Smith, wide receiver.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Deion Smith is a tricky one, and there's the honest answers. There's only so much I can really say right now, but he is back on campus right now. Yes, that is true. But everything I've gathered, I do not expect him to be on the LSU football team this season. It's a weird situation. It's kind of a poster child for just the weird time we're in right now.
Sure.
But he did enter the portal, obviously, a while back, and everything I've gathered is he's still most likely leaving, but I think he needs to stay at LSU for a little longer before he can actually go elsewhere.
What did it mean to get Micah Baskerville back, his announcement yesterday, a veteran, a guy who's played a lot of football here? What's that mean for LSU here in 2022?
Yeah, I think stability is the boring answer, but it's just the answer. Like, because I actually like a lot of that talent in that linebacker room. Mike Jones had some great moments. I think Greg Penn is going to be a stud. I think Josh White, even though he's been banged up, still, if he could ever be healthy, is going to be a really good linebacker. A lot of pieces I like, but the idea of LSU going the next year with basically some variation of those three and maybe Tampa as like the starters of an SEC defense that's leading it, that you would get worried. Like there's no assurance there. There is no clear guy calling the plays, and I think that would be having Baskerville now suddenly just makes you feel way better about that entire situation because even though Baskerville is not the physical talent among Clark is, there's a lot of SEC linebackers that are more talented than Micah Baskerville. But he's really smart. He's really good at diagnosing. He knows what he is doing. It's kind of the best way to put it a lot of the time. So then pairing him with whoever it be, whether it's Jones or whether it's Penn, who I think is a really good shot at starting next year, whoever it is, now you just feel better about turning to that youth a little bit because you have that key stable cog. So I think that's just a huge boost for Brian Kelly in year one.
Hayden Paris, hashtag Ask Brody. Is the LSU defensive line a top 5 unit in college football going into next season?
Oof. There comes an element with this, though, that's like, I know, like, an uneducated answer, but you went 6-6. Like, I don't know if I'm going to put you there, like, as much as, like, I love the talent, there is just a little element of, like, they didn't actually, there's still a little bit of proving to do there. But no, this is a really, really, really good defensive line, if healthy especially. Gay and Ojulari, we didn't get to see it this year, which is, as much as we wanted to. And even the year before, Ojulari was coming along. So the idea of hopefully being able to see them actually kind of go beat stars, together on the same D-line, that's an awesome unit. That has the potential to be exciting. And then on top of that, Mason Smith obviously wasn't healthy all year. He is one of the best D tackles in college football if he's available. His advanced stats and all that from last year, even though in limited time, were mind-boggling for a defensive tackle, let alone a freshman. So that group, and Roy's taking a leap, and Guillory and Langston obviously is a guy they were really high on. Then you're adding a guy like Wingo. Yeah, it's a really, really good unit. I'm just trying to tone down my hyperbole when we're talking about the 6-16, but that is clearly. I know receiver is the other argument for strength, but man, D-line looks really good right now.
Jaquelin Roy. BJ Ojulari, obviously, but when you got Jaquelin Roy, Mason Smith, and incoming Quincy Wiggins on the same unit, that's the number 1 defensive lineman in the state the last 3 years. That's going to be a dominant unit.
Point.
That's going to be a dominant unit. Ben Cavell, hashtag Ask Brody. Brody, who plays center next season?
That I don't have a good answer for you, just straight up. Now, Sherman Short said in an interview with, I believe, 24/7, I want to give credit to, but that he could play center, guard, tackle, wherever you need him to play, and I do believe that, and I think that's possible. I think, but other than him, there's really now Charles Turner came up as a center originally. He can play center, but Turner's just tough to count on because he is injured all the time in a lot of ways, and he really did gain some credit with the last staff, kind of being that utility guy in a lot of ways, and really being able to play 3 positions. And he's a solid player and a good athlete, long frame, but it's hard to count on him considering just how injured he is. But yeah, that I will flat out concede that is one of the bigger question marks left on this roster.
Josh Hill, hashtag Ask Brody. Brody, a big need for LSU has been tight end during this cycle. Is LSU targeting any tight ends in the portal that you know of?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because that is something I've asked about. And just like you said, there's really one true – I think Mashburn did get a scholarship. There's only one true scholarship tight end, and that's Cole Taylor, who, by the way, didn't even really practice the field much last year. And they said most feedback I got is the tight end – the portal is not very good with tight ends right now. And I think there's a lot of guys that everyone's like, oh, Michael Trigg. We recruited him before, big recruit. Why don't you go Jaleel Billingsley they didn't really go for. I've gathered – she was not pursuing those guys for a bunch of different reasons, and again, I go back to, vague things like they are very specifically trying to get the right guys in a certain culture, and I think they've done their research and kind of, maybe strayed away a little bit. So they haven't loved any of the tight ends they've really seen in the portal this far. So I think that's just worth saying that, they're not going to force it just to do it. They do plan on, they would like to bring in Danny Lewis from Westgate, obviously. I think that would help those numbers a little bit. Cole Taylor's there. And the other thing I'd remind people is I've been told they do plan on leaving, I don't know how many, 1-2 spots available for after spring, because it's obviously very common for more guys to enter the portal after spring, and they might see where they're at there.
What type of impact do you expect Cortez Hankton to have on this coaching staff, on the recruiting trail, and combining him with Frank Wilson in the city of New Orleans seems like a hell of a duo.
It does. I think top to bottom, they've just done a pretty respectable job of building that Louisiana recruiting aspect of the staff, right? Where Cortez Hankton and that New Orleans thing with him and Frank could be really strong. You don't have an excuse for losing another Shaz Preston, for example. You just don't. And on top of that, even getting Joe Sloan, a guy who recruits the entire state well, and Brad Davis obviously has all this experience. To kind of maybe be like your more Baton Rouge area specialist, but I really do think they've done a good job there. Hankton's tricky because it's just tough to figure out sometimes. We've seen this at LSU as much as anyone. It's tough to figure out like how much credit you give a pass game coordinator and a receivers coach because it's like this weird accumulation of different things. But he did sign 5 top 100 receivers between 2 classes in 18 and 19. From what I gather, he didn't have some misses the last 2 years, but he's clearly a respected recruiter. He's coached at Vanderbilt and Dartmouth, which also, again, some of this might be elite, but shows he knows how to bring in the right guys and things like that. So I do think that's a no-brainer hire for LSU, a really good one for them.
As you see the roster rounding up, are you starting to develop an expectation or a fair expectation for how competitive they can be in year one?
Yeah, and I'm curious your thoughts on this as well, honestly, because I'm struggling with this. I mean, I do think they've done a good job of patching holes. I just think this is a more than 1 year rebuild going on. So, yeah, I think they're talented at a point where, like, they should win 8. But, I mean, we've thought that the last 2 years. So, like, I'm not going to make the mistake I've made the last 2 years of thinking, yeah, they can get back to 9-10, no problem. So I think 8's like a fair, baseline. What do you think?
I'm with you, man. It's tough to really kind of find – because what you have to battle is that they've done a really good job of restoring and kind of making themselves competitive. But Alabama's gotten better. A&M's gotten better. Tennessee's gotten better. Ole Miss has gotten better. So where they can kind of fall in the pecking order of year one is really kind of where I'm trying to land. I mean, 3rd, 4th in the SEC West, I think would be a night. If they finish 3rd in the SEC West, I think that's a really successful season for them next year.
No, I think you said that better than I could. Yeah, I think you're right because when you put it like that, it's where the wins, where the obvious wins. So I think you're right.
Andrew Messina asked, #Ask Brody, and we started a little bit of a wildfire before we talked to John Brady at 7:30. We were talking about Miles Brennan, and this goes into that. Messina asked, #Ask Brody, are you looking forward to the Nuss-Brennan debate for the next 8 months? Because as we were talking about it, I understand the value of Miles Brennan and the recruiting pitch that Brian Kelly made to him on the stability that the quarterback room needs. I don't know if he can hold Nuss off all season just because of his talent and the quarterback competition. That's just kind of where we were going with it. And that's no disrespect to Brennan. It's more of just kind of an outlook on where Nussmeier could be in year 2 from, the growth that I expect him to make in the experience he got in year 1 going into year 2. I think that Brennan is QB1 today, but once you get on the field, I think that could change maybe quicker than later, with a move.
No, I think that's really well put because you're right. I mean, there's just an element of Nussmeier where you assume he takes the leap. Well, Brennan, again, no disrespect, he's like 23. There's some extent you're not going to make a massive leap right now. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to that. I think the thing I just keep going back to, and this is just what I think, this is not information, but I just think there's something to Kelly really wants stability in year 1, especially with the question marks across this roster, especially with just the, instability a little bit. I kind of get the sense that year 1, he's really excited about the idea of having a quarterback who is a redshirt senior, who will not make mistakes. He will not, force things. And maybe not like down the road, I think he might be down for a little more volatility. But I think he's really excited about having that idea of this veteran guy who knows what he's doing to help alleviate some other problems. But I do have that same question. Just like Nussmeier might just blow people away. He's talented. And it's tough because, we're making Brennan sound like the boring, team manager. And it's like, dude, the guy's the biggest arm. He's a cannon, and he's threw for 40 yards a game nearly. So it's tough. So I think I'll have a better answer when we just see what Brennan looks like healthy again. But my gut says Kelly wants reliability this year.
No, it's fair, and I buy it because I think that's what he sold him on, and I think that was his recruiting pitch that you're to Brian Kelly, Miles Brennan was a must get because of the stability that he wanted in that quarterback room. Hey, last one, I'll get you out of here. Make sure you're reading the work over at The Athletic. Get the subscription today. It is very beneficial if you're an LSU football fan to get some of this information that we're talked about from Brody Miller. This latest article was published last night, and it's a must-read for LSU fans as it gives you really a kind of step-by-step process of how Kelly has gotten to this point with the transfer portal. Outside of the portal, you got to build the class and the program through recruiting. How have you heard they have positioned themselves for this first Wednesday in February with guys on the board like Jacoby Matthews and Trevante Citizen, and even Harold Perkins is still on the board?
Yeah, you know me. I'm always going to be the first to say, Billy, Shea, some of these guys just dominate this stuff. I'll always. Yeah. But I've gotten a sense they feel pretty. They're in good position, right, with Matthews and Citizen. I do think they feel pretty confident. I don't think you're ever 100% with those guys until the last day. Perkins, I have gathered they're 100% in the mix for it. They are in the mix. They are making it a play. It's an uphill battle, so I'm not going to, if I was on 24/7, I don't know if I'd be putting a crystal ball in or anything like that for Perkins. But yeah, the others are obviously Danny Lewis, and there's been some buzz about John Rhodes, out of Texas, another speedy receiver they could look into adding. So if I had to chuck up a guess, I would guess they get 4 more high school guys, whether that be Citizen, Matthews, Lewis, and Rutledge, or whatever it is. And then, you have 4 more spots for transfers. That would be my guess. But then that would be a pretty successful, window, in my opinion.
Brody A. Miller on Twitter. The subscription is available to you if you don't already have it over at The Athletic. Make sure and grab it today. He is routinely here on the Jordy Culotta Show, dropping knowledge. In fact, we had a listener asking when Brody was going to be back earlier this week, and hopefully we can set up a routine come spring football. Once the Tiger, I believe it's March 15th when LSU takes the practice field, and there will be a lot of buzz around Brian Kelly and that look and what the Tigers look like. Thank you as always, Brody. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, a lot of fun, guys. Take care.
Always. There he is, Brody Miller checking in. Edward Jones brings you that conversation and more here on the Jordy Culotta Show. If you're looking for financial advice, if you're looking for investment opportunities or a little bit of investment strategy, get in touch with our friend.
A little bit of a tailgate.
Over at Daniel Newman, over at Edward Jones with Daniel Newman. He's located out in Central. He's a basketball fanatic, a basketball junkie. In fact, he was heading up our tailgate, and we've been going back and forth on when the next tailgate is going to be. Obviously, it'll be a Saturday game. I think LSU's got 2 Saturday games left versus Mississippi State and Georgia. Maybe 225-261-8262 is the phone number to get in touch with Daniel Newman, conveniently located in Magnolia Square Drive out there in Central, across from Stab's Restaurant. If you want to get in touch with Newman, any questions you have concerning financial investments, if you work inside of the plant industry and you are heading over and need some advice on what you should do with your finances, Daniel Newman is an expert within that field and within that trade. Dow, BASF, any of the plants that you may work at, let Daniel Newman help you out today with your financial strategy. Online at daniel.newman@edwardjones.com, or that's his email address, as you can get in touch with him there. Or as we always tell you, you can call him at 261-8262, 225 area code, 261-8262 is where you find him.
Or just go to a home LSU basketball game. You'll see him there.
Nick Underhill, who talks Saints from New Orleans.football here, talking offseason. The Carpool Queen has made it through as well. We will have her on set when we come back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by our friends over at Go Chevrolet.
Tough job for the Carpool Queen, it seems.
Papa Earl's, the fine spice, originating right down here in South Louisiana by our guy Mark Pop Norman. Developed it back in 2018 and won Amazon's Newcomer of the Year in 2019. They pride themselves in having 30% less salt and sodium than the leading brands at the same price point. You can find them locally. Look for Papa Earl's at Rouse's, Calandro's, Mathern's, High Neighbor, and more.
Welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Ghost Chevrolet. Check our friends out at GEAUXChevrolet.com. Lots to get to. We appreciate Brody Miller for being here, John Brady from Tuscaloosa, all of that stuff podcasted and brought back to you by RMB Builders, including our next guest, Nick Underhill, who's got the best information on the New Orleans Saints. We were telling you about the subscriptions that you need to have. NewOrleans.football is one of them to keep up with what is happening with the Saints. As always, we appreciate his insight during the football season. We'll kind of recap what the Saints were like in year one without Drew Brees, what this offseason is going to look like now here on the Jordy Culotta Show with Underhill. Nicky, good morning. How are you, man?
Hey, doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. NewOrleans.football is the site. From your point of view, you have covered this group, and you've got great relationships in that building. Year one after Drew Brees, I'm sure that his ghost and it was you could feel that around the facility still, even though he wasn't around. What and how did you think they managed this season after really the face of the franchise for the last nearly 2 decades?
I think they did a pretty decent job. They went 9-8 without him. A lot of teams, after the legend steps away, they're kind of in a crisis mode and trying to figure out how to survive, and things bottom out a little bit. And look, the Saints were kind of in crisis mode all season long, but not because of Brees. It was more injury related, and starting 57 different guys, and I think those are the things that became difficult for them. But not having Brees and still having a winning record despite all those injuries, I think that speaks to the strength of the group, the culture that they built, how good the defense was, the coaching. So overall, pretty good without him. I think they learned some hard lessons too, just with how they value wide receivers, tight ends, skill position players, and what it takes for those guys to succeed in that offense. For a while, when you can get Lance Moore, Willie Snead, and guys without these high level pedigrees, and they come in, they succeed and do a really good job, I think that you probably start to believe that that's a result of the system. And I think they found out a little bit, how much Brees played into that. So learning those lessons, going through all those hard things, still coming out of it at 9-8, and not really going through like a dreadful bottom out season while learning those lessons. Overall, I think they did a pretty decent job navigating that situation without having, the Aaron Rodgers waiting in the wings to come in and take over and lead the team.
In the same week that you published the Saints offseason in review, social media pops up of Jameis Winston working out, and it looks like he is ahead of schedule. What does that do for the Saints and negotiating for the quarterback position next year? Where does he fit in?
I think he's still probably the most realistic option. There's a bunch of different things they could do this offseason. Obviously, Russell Wilson, if he becomes available in a trade and if Seattle actually becomes motivated to do that, I think that has to become priority one, because the Saints were on his list. There was a list of 4 teams. They would have the ammunition to make that trade happen because Wilson does have a no-trade clause. So he kind of dictates who's even on the table. So a lot of people will be like, hey, Philadelphia has 3 first-round picks. They might need a quarterback. They're the obvious team. If Russ doesn't want to go to Philadelphia, it doesn't matter, and that's not part of the conversation. So if that becomes real, I think that's where you have to start looking. I mean, that guy, he's minute. He's a guy you win because of you get him in the building, and you're a step away from being a Super Bowl contender just off the merit of having one of the 5-6 best quarterbacks in the NFL. After that, you could look at the draft, other guys, Jimmy Garoppolo, other people that Derek Carr could come up in a trade potentially. And if those happen, I think you got to look at those. But the most realistic path back next season would be Jameis Winston. And I think he can be pretty good in this system if they put better players around him, give him a couple wide receivers, get a healthy offensive line. I think there's a reality where he's a really good quarterback. And if he had stayed healthy this year, I think for sure they're in the playoffs. They get at least one more win, probably a few more wins. And they're possibly upsetting somebody in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, I think they could have been a much better team with him healthy. At the same time, if you have other options, you got to look at every option. I mean, for guys like Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, if Russ Wilson's available, like you have to try to maximize what this defense is, get them to where they deserve to be by complementing with an offense that's on par with that. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Jameis coming back. I think that's probably on the table. It's just kind of figuring out what the value is going to be and how much it would cost. And I think that's going to be the most fascinating thing of the offseason, honestly, man, is just seeing what a team pays him to play, because I could see it being $7 million, or I could see it being $20 million. It just kind of depends on the need, the amount of teams that are interested in him, and how far that goes. But the best thing for him, I think, is to sign another 1-year deal. You go out, you play with the Saints. They put a decent team around you. Mike Thomas plays. They get another wide receiver in the draft. Your numbers go up. Everything's better. You hit the market in a year and you max out and you get back to kind of where you're supposed to be after a successful season. So even if he does come back, if I were him, I would want it to be another short-term deal. So, a year from now, even, you could be back in this situation. So if they re-sign Jameis, I would still be looking to try to draft a quarterback just to have that long-term plan and see if there is a door B, even though you still have Jameis in the building.
Saints signed Ryan Ramczyk to a 5-year, $96 million deal last offseason. What's that do for the discussions this offseason with Teron Armstead?
I think it sends his agent into the room and he says 5 years, $97 million. Because,
right.
That's just kind of where you got to go with it. And someone's going to pay him, whether it's the Saints or somebody else. And I think that that's a very difficult situation for the Saints to navigate, because the talent, it's as good as it gets, and the risk is as high as it gets, I think, especially as he ages into his 30s with the injury history. I mean, he could come back and avoid it. He had a couple seasons where it looked like he had started to figure out some of that stuff, and then last year happened. So yeah, long term, that's a risky situation. But in the short term, if they keep him around, he has some voidable years on his contract. If they were to re-sign him, you can push those back out, and you aren't taken, I believe, and this is just off the top, it might be the wrong number, but I believe it's a $13 million dead money hit if he leaves and goes and plays somewhere else. So keeping him, you could keep those pushed out into the future, and that would still be looming down the road, but you wouldn't be paying him $13 million to go somewhere else. And then on top of that $13 million, you got to pay somebody to come in and take his place. So if you're kind of looking at it just as a position and the investment in a specific position, you kind of got to weigh that in there and see, like, all right, does it make sense to get rid of him, mitigate the risk, but you got to pay this money now, but the cost of the position is still relative to what it would be to have him around. And then even in the short term, it's higher just this season because you have that $13 million already on the books. So that's the other part of the conversation they got to figure out. As far as, what I've heard just asking around, I think the team does intend to make him some type of offer. So I don't think it's a situation where they're already pushing him out the door, but it's just how much is he agreeable to where that starting point is. So that's the hardest decision I think they got to figure out this offseason.
Yeah, you mentioned the priorities, and it seems like they have a couple going into the draft. A guy that I think fits in at the top of that list of re-signs has got to be Marcus Williams, right? Where does he fit into the business of this offseason for the Saints?
I think he's a high priority. I mean, look back at last year; they're $110 million over the cap, and they tagged him. And that's how big of a priority it was for them to keep him around. Then, in last year, just remember when Malcolm Jenkins came in, like those first 6 or 7 games of the season. And I think this is the best way to quantify like the value in the role that safeties play with the Saints is like you just look at those first 6 or 7 games last year and the amount of busted coverages and they were just not in sync and they couldn't play together and it looked like the sky was falling and the secondary was going to lead to their own doing. And eventually they all got together, they got on the same page and you started to see them flourish a little bit. And then coming into this year, everything was on point. There were no hiccups. I think if you take Marcus Williams out of that equation, you're kind of back in that situation. And that's the guy that gets everybody set. He's the signal caller for the back end. He's making sure everybody's playing the right coverage. He's the quarterback of the secondary. And I think losing him just on that organizational standpoint of having everybody in the right places, I think that's a huge hit. And then talent-wise on top of it, his range is unbelievable. And a lot of the stuff he does is just erasing. And I think having a guy like Paulson Adebo in there, who's a taller guy, bigger guy, his hips aren't as fast as other people. And that turn is where guys get beat, is when they're trying to flip their hips. I think having a guy like Marcus Williams over top who helps cover some of that and allows you to utilize Adebo's length, but doesn't get him beat against quicker guys because you have that safety back there just cutting off those throws, that's a huge benefit too. So I think he makes everybody in that secondary a little bit better. Obviously, he has his downsides. The play, who was it, Pollard, where he didn't tackle him against Dallas. Like, there's a weird play or two every season that everybody latches onto just based off the mistake he made as a rookie. And he'll never fully atone for that in some Saints fans' eyes. But overall, I think he's one of the best 5-6 safeties in the NFL, and they showed you last year how much of a priority he is, and I would expect them to make every effort to try to keep him around.
Nick Underhill from New Orleans.football joining us here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Nick, what are we missing on Dennis Allen? Why, it's surprising not to see him get more looks in a lot of coaching vacancies that are available in the NFL, right?
I think it comes down to this. Like in Oakland, he had a lot of, couple 4-win seasons, and then he got fired going into the third. And I think we've seen him obviously come back, be amazing as a defensive coordinator. And I think he's proven everything he needs to prove in one of those positions. And I think he's probably learned his lessons. He's had a very long time since then to think back, and he knows what he didn't know going into that situation. I think he's extremely deserving. But if you are a GM and if you're a GM and it's your first hire, and you hire a guy that went 4 wins, fired, he doesn't succeed in your place, you aren't getting the chance to make that second head coach hire. And I just think people are afraid to take that risk. And if you hire DA, it has to work. But a lot of times if the GM hires a coach, it doesn't work. They get a chance to hire the next guy and possibly have a chance to survive and keep their career alive. But if you take a risk and it doesn't work, you aren't going to get that grace to come back at it. And I think that's probably the reason that hasn't happened for him. And I think it's dumb. I mean, I would rather hire a guy that's, if you're hiring coordinators just off the merit of what they've done as a coordinator, he's at the top of the list. And I would kind of think there's some value in learning those lessons and knowing why you failed as a head coach the first time and being able to come back and do things the right way. But I mean, it's just that risk calculation, I think, doesn't work out for him.
16 years ago yesterday, Tom Benson introduced a baby-faced Sean Payton with pleated khaki pants and an oversized sport coat.
And a visor.
That was a press conference for the ages. It feels like as soon as he left that press conference, the rumors started that he was going to take the Cowboys job. That popped up again yesterday. This is all we've seen this before, right?
Yeah, look, I think at some point these conversations got to stop at least a little bit. As far as him taking another job as a coach, like if it doesn't happen this year, and I would be extremely surprised if he left to take another coaching job. If it doesn't happen this year with the Bears, the Giants, and potentially the Cowboys job being available, those are the 3 spots if Sean were ever going to leave that he has ties to. Chicago hometown, right. Coach in New York, coach in Dallas. We know that he holds Dallas and New York in high esteem. I don't think he's going to Chicago. He would be insane to go to New York. I don't see Dallas happening. He has it better here than he's going to have it anywhere else as a coach. And, it's hands off. They allow him to run the team how he wants to run it. He's as bulletproof as anybody. Even just like the way they manage the cap, that's just a result of them having the leeway to kind of do what they want to do. Like other places, there's so much noise about the way the Saints manage the cap. And obviously we've seen that it works. But that creativity and that would make other people extremely uncomfortable. And you start to hear the noise, and then there's pressure on your GMs and that. But Sean can say, hey, make this work. They make it work. Gail Benson cuts the check when they convert this money into signing bonuses because you got to pay it all up front. And the train keeps rolling. So he can do things the way he wants to here. He would be nuts to leave. Like, if Sean were ever to leave here, I would think it would probably be to go into broadcasting. I don't see him leaving here to take another coaching job. I don't see him going into broadcasting anytime soon. But if you were ever to leave, I think it would be to step away and do something else. And then maybe down the road he comes back to it. But I don't see him leaving here due to the appeal of another situation. And look, this team's close. Like it just wouldn't make sense to me to see him anywhere else. And man, him and Jerry Jones, like it would probably be harmony for a year or two, and then they'd want to kill each other. Like it just wouldn't. I just don't see it working out.
They'd be $300 million over the cap in the first year.
Oh my God! That'd be Jerry's favorite guy. Go get him.
It would look like Alabama football. I mean, for God's sake.
Wait, Jerry, you tell me you're poor?
Nick Underhill, the best in the business, who covers the Saints. Last one, I'll get you out of here. You brought up Russell Wilson a couple of minutes ago. He is the one, I think, that the Saints, that would kind of be the golden goose of the offseason. How much viability is there, and what do you have to give up to make something like that happen?
So he would come in $24 million on the cap. He's got another year left, so $54 million. You would just add 3 void years to it, stretch it out, and that number is extremely palatable. It'd be like $6-7 million next year if you really wanted it to be. So it wouldn't be a money situation when people are like, they can't afford them. Like, they absolutely can't afford them. That trade would be done before the start of the new league year. You'd hold up all your other contracts you're re-signing so you could get Russell on the books, restructure it, and then dominoes fall, and you have massive amounts of money if they do all the restructures they can do, because there's 63 million over the cap right now, and if they get like aggressive with their restructures, they can clear over 100 million. So you could sign Russ and have 30-40 million dollars to go buy him whatever he wants to seal the deal and make him come here. So that wouldn't be part of it. It would be the trade compensation will be steep. Last year, I believe, when Chicago was pursuing him, they offered 2 or 3 firsts and a third. So, I mean, you're giving up significant draft capital. And, I love the way we talk about the draft. It's like, oh, my God, a first-round pick. You can't give up a first-round pick for somebody. What if the first-round pick ends up being Cesar Ruiz, and then the next first-round pick ends up being Peyton Turner, and that third-round pick that's part of the deal is Zach Vaughn, and now you're giving up, a first this year. Like, say if you made this trade in 2020, nobody would hesitate in 2020 to trade for Russell Wilson if it cost you Cesar Ruiz, Zach Vaughn, Peyton Turner, and a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So, you start putting names on it. Like, these picks aren't always the perfect thing. Sometimes you make a trade to help your defense and you end up with Stephon Anthony. Sometimes you make a trade to help your offense and you end up with Ryan Ramczyk. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Russell Wilson, works. So it would be expensive, and you'd lose the ability to have some cost-controlled players around, and that would be the major downside, because now you're signing a veteran wide receiver instead of drafting one that doesn't really cost you anything. But I mean, it's something I would do in a second. I mean, it's Russell Wilson.
For sure.
You get him on your team, and you're right there. You're knocking on the door. So yeah, I mean, it would be a doable thing financially. It's just like, would you want to give up the picks? But I think Seattle would be absolutely insane to trade this guy, and it's hard for me to believe it would actually happen. What were they, 7-10? Like, they aren't that far off either. Get a couple offensive linemen, tweak the offense to where this guy wants it to be, and keep it rolling, because trying to replace him and you're Pete Carroll, you're 77 years old, like, a lot of it doesn't make sense. So
that
he would
doesn't
really
make
have
sense
to
that
try
he's
to sort this way
77.
out.
Doesn't make sense that he's 77. For God's sakes, I feel like I look older than Pete Carroll. I swear this is the last one. Senior Bowl coming up at the end of the month. Draft around the corner. Is there a player or position group that they're targeting at 18 that you heard of?
I think definitely wide receiver is way up on the list. They're looking at the quarterback. Basically anything on offense. I think they got eyes on tackles, because you never know what's going to happen with Teron. So, I don't think this year it's going to be very hard to figure out what they're trying to do. I think the things they need to do are extremely obvious, and it's all on the offensive side of the ball.
Nick Underhill, best in the business. You can hear him weekly here, right here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Appreciate the interaction and the involvement all season, bro. Your insight is greatly needed around here, and looking forward to getting you in studio to when you get down to Baton Rouge. Thank you as always. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, man. There is Nick Underhill checking in this morning from New Orleans football. A lot of info, and I really left a Mike Thomas question on the floor.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask like kind of what the expectation for Thomas is this offseason, just to kind of. I mean, he's got to get right?
He's right.
I mean, $100 million later, bro.
Right,
I mean, yeah, right. You need to be on the field catching footballs,
that
man.
puzzle piece doesn't fit for the Saints. I would imagine that maybe that's where you get some of that draft capital, or if you're talking about a Russell Wilson, maybe that's a piece that you can move to be able to get him. Because I don't know, where did the Seahawks draft this year? I mean, imagine.
Got to be higher than the Saints.
But there's no quarterbacks available, like none. Like Kenny Pickett doesn't excite me to take
No
and
way.
build a franchise around.
No. You can't make it past Baylor, bro.
Dave Aranda, big brain guy, though.
What do you think the Bears are going to do to him? Exactly. You know what I mean? GoFlow IV and Spa, GoFlowIV.com. I'll be over there at noon today, 12:15. I'm heading over there. So we got a busy morning over here at the Noodle, and go get some energy over at GoFlow IV. GEAUX, FlowIV.com, Baton Rouge's premier medical spa specializing in IV hydration treatments with vitamin infusion. You can find them on Jefferson Highway, 7970 Jefferson Highway. Can help you out with chronic dehydration, skin, hair, beauty care, athletic performance, hangover cures, chronic illness, whatever you're looking to get cured on. They can help you out over there at GoFlow.
Just anything.
What are you, cure some meats?
What are you, depressed?
What are you go cure yourself? Go get cured.
What, you got a broken arm? Go to GoFlow, kid. Why don't you?
Stick a needle in it.
GEAUX, flowiv.com, GoFlowIV. What?
What? Hell of a mom.
GoFlowIV.com. Just trying to make it here on time. The carpool queen.
know, right?
Whatever we got to
Needle
do.
in my eye.
Yeah, right. Stick this.
Here, take this.
You're,
You'll be fine.
you're eating your breakfast through IV this morning.
Liquid breakfast.
Exactly.
4:30 in the morning. Get up.
Get up. I gotta get to work.
I gotta be at work, people.
The traffic a little worse to get to the noodle.
It is a lot different getting to the noodle than the udel
Yeah.
from school.
Yeah, all right.
I miss the udel. The drive, 10 minutes every
drive.
time.
I miss
no
the drive.
traffic.
I know.
This is a disaster.
It is. It
Golly.
is. We all might as well just
6:30, I can't hit it. Like 6:35, 6:33, I can't get. Never gonna make it before. No chance. My body.
No, I've
is
given
in
up on
use.
that.
I know.
What happened this morning? It started at like 7:48. The stream.
7:48.
I mean
7:04.
6:48.
Oh yeah, I started it early.
Oh wow.
And then the stream started to it petered out on me. I don't know what happened. So I have a phone call into a very smart man.
Okay.
And we do know about the website malfunctioning.
We
Yes.
do.
And we will
Yeah.
be
It
on
is
that.
repaired.
We got
We'll
that
be
one.
on that. We'll be on that. Shout out to our friends over at Nevadis, Randall Knockman and the
Yes,
crew.
He repaired it. I got a few calls this morning even from our show website number asking about it, but it is all repaired.
Sweet.
You'll be able to stream
Excellent.
it from the website.
Golly, that was pretty glaring of Nick Underhill pointing out the misses on first round picks for the Saints. I mean, Peyton Turner was a miss.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy
I mean, he
was
played well, but I mean, then he got
Did he?
hurt.
Yeah, then he got hurt. Yeah, I mean, he was on the fit. I mean, Cesar Ruiz, yeah.
Yeah.
You
know
can
what
say
I mean?
the same
I
thing
mean,
about Marcus Davenport to an extent, a guy that they
Right.
traded up to get and lost a pick to go get, and he's been in the kind of the same mold of a little hurt, but when he plays, you see flashes, but certainly not worth the first round pick. That's more an indictment on the Saints than
I agree.
the
No
power
doubt.
of a first round
100%.
pick.
100%.
Because
Just evaluation.
right, but
Yeah.
then they do so well in the back half of the draft.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
It
but
doesn't.
It just goes to show what a crapshoot the NFL draft is.
you
It's
know, like-
unbelievable. They don't know what they're doing
And
either.
it's so
I love
murky
Peyton's
sometimes.
arrogance around football.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I really do. I think that's one of his most redeeming. I love that about him. Just
It
how
is.
arrogant he is
I know what
about
I'm
the game.
talking
Yeah,
about.
absolutely.
Yes.
You do not want to debate me about football.
No, yeah.
I will run circles around you in my sleep. I've forgotten more football than you
Oh, yeah,
clowns know.
ears perk up when
You know what I
football
mean?
comes.
It's
Like,
like-
are y'all talking football?
Yeah, right,
You
right.
stumbled into my arena.
But for whatever reason, high-end draft picks have been his kryptonite.
And he keeps trying to get one.
Right, which is
trade
kind
back
of
in
goes
'cause he
to his
feels like he
arrogance.
missed, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
like
Or his personality.
give him more picks. I need
Yeah.
more shots at this. You know what I mean?
He's got
Like,
an addictive personality. We know that.
but I
so
mean, if
he'll
you
get in
think
there.
of some of the players that he's passed on, right? Like, I mean, and then this is a lot of the LSU list. But I mean, the Lloyd Cushenberrys, the Jarvis Landrys, the Justin Jeffersons, the Patrick Queens. You know what I mean? I mean, all of those guys. If you're just talking about the high end guys, the guys that have performed.
Did you see the Vikings draft war room whenever Justin Jefferson? So the Eagles are on the clock.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they have
And
the
Peterson and them laugh at. They
they're
laugh.
like, well,
Who's the
they're-
pick? Is it
Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, Jalen
Like, well, they're
Reagor.
going wide
Yeah.
receiver, like, oh, they're going to take Jefferson. And then they go Rager. They go, they took Rager?
Yeah.
They go, get Jefferson. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm already on it.
Yeah, they're like, sprint the card to the
It's so
podium.
good. It's like, they took Rager? It's like, we got to get Jefferson. It's like, card's already in. It's like, we got it. We got
Yeah.
one, boys.
Yeah.
But you wish LSU would, you wish the Saints would kind of follow that.
They had
mold
their
of-
opportunities, man. I mean, they took Cesar. Was it Cesar Ruiz taken right before Patrick Queen? I think it was the pick before Queen.
think-
Yeah,
Yes, I
someone
think
did
it
say
was,
that.
And I want to say that Justin Jefferson was he might have been off the board when the Saints selected that season, but obviously Jarvis Landry was on the board, and then Lloyd Cushenberry was on the board, who's a starter for the Denver Broncos at center, and they have struggled to find a consistent player at center. Now I don't know all the players that they missed on as far as the college football as a whole, but I know that coming out of LSU during that time period, they have just either missed on the evaluation of these guys, or they've they had guys graded higher than Patrick Queen and Jarvis Landry and Lloyd Cushenberry and guys that are instant impact guys on a NFL roster. Which the Saints that's been the most concerning part, is like the 4th through 7th round picks have had the impacts, and the 1st and 3rds have felt like they've needed time to get moving. Where really. It's kind of opposite. I mean, it's supposed to work out, but the higher the draft pick, the more ready you are to play.
Maybe they're playing like 4D chess where you can get these first round guys later and sign them to a smaller contract and re-up on them instead of having to deal with first round money If they're really trying to game the system, I don't think that's what they're doing. But that's a way around it. If you think you're that good at your job, like, well, we can get him in the third. We'll take a throwaway pick in the first round. But if you look back at it, they could have had Patrick Queen and Lloyd Cushenberry in that draft. They were both available, right, at both of those spots.
Yeah.
And your team would look totally different than what it does now with.
Well, your concerns would be a lot different, right? I mean,
Still need a receiver.
Yeah, they still need a wideout.
Do y'all think Sean Payton will really leave?
No,
You don't?
no, because
Not
of
to
what
go to Dallas. but
because
just
of
to
what
go
Nick
somewhere.
Underhill just said. He runs the organization.
Yeah.
There's nowhere he'll ever be able to go where he is presented with more power. I mean, as much as Jerry Jones would love to give him that power, his ego won't allow him to hand over that power.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Peyton was to go in there and start succeeding, well, then here comes Jones starting to meddle. He just can't help himself.
Jerry Jones do
He
this?
just can't help himself. I don't know. He looks dead.
I mean, he does. I wonder every
I wonder
year,
what
I'm like, how
cocktail he
long?
has in his body.
Everything.
It's the salt on
I mean,
the
I think at
grill.
this point he has
That's
got.
what it is.
At this point, he has gotten to the. I'll take
Salt
all of
on
the
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 above.
bagel.
salt.
Yeah,
I
the
forgot.
salt.
I mean?
Yeah, he's a big sodium guy.
Big salt guy. I mean,
individual
salt
salt
each
bites.
bite.
He
Yes.
drowned that sausage biscuit.
Yes, it makes my mouth.
Not only did he hit it with the shaker, he hit it with the packet in the. I mean, do you know
So
how much
much.
salt's in the packet alone?
Yes.
Before we start sprinkling the shaker, bro, I mean, like, we've covered all bases here, Jerry.
I mean, he can't have
It's
taste
salted.
buds.
I mean, we've
anymore.
packeted up every bite that you're taking of this sausage biscuit that's already coated in salt.
Who didn't salt this for me already? Somebody's ass is on the line. That McDonald's. But, I mean, maybe there's a chance it's not salt.
Hayden
Like,
Paris,
it's all
who's
in
a,
There's a chance it's not salt. You're right.
no chance. Yeah, right. Hayden Paris, who's a better talent evaluator, Jordy or Haney? I am. Hayden. It ain't even close. Make
What
sure and
kind of
send that back to
question is
Haney. Savion Smith's a first-round pick.
Jones.
Nussmeier will be starting by the second
Savion-
game.
Savion
Yes, I would
Smith is a
always
corner.
Savion Jones.
The new
So many
Eli
Savions.
Ricks. They're the same person.
Yeah.
Tom Granning, happy 28th birthday to his eldest son, Thomas, who is named after his father. Had dinner in Oxford with him last night on his way
It's a
home.
bold assumption to make, Jordy.
That he was named after.
Safe travels, Tommy. And happy birthday to
And thanks for the
Junior.
snacks, Tom.
Yes,
as
thank you,
Thank you
Tom.
for the
Appreciate
tickets
Thank
this
you, Tom.
weekend. That
Thank
was
you,
an
Tom.
awesome time. Me and my brother got to go. We had a blast.
AM Mart, the
Oh, AM Mart.
no, it's not AM Mart.
Go Mart.
It's Go Mart. Go Mart in Natchez, Mississippi, on Highway 61. Stop in and see them. AM Mart sandwiches are highly overrated. That's what I meant to say.
It's obviously on your brain. So
David's
you're
been
thinking
eating
sandwich.
those like every other day.
I
He's
still
gotten
He's not an
back
Ingas
into
guy.
it.
I still haven't had either
Oh
of them.
God, no.
Golly.
Love
Are y'all-
Walmart.
I
are
still
y'all in
haven't had
counseling?
either of them.
I mean, I've never even been to AM Mart, so I don't care. I don't
Okay.
have a dog in this hunt.
That's good. I'd see counseling out for his Ingas
He
AM
loves
Mart
it.
assessment.
Wait,
though.
we have the guy that crushed an entire platter of food yesterday of
I
sandwiches.
had 4 sandwiches.
That's a lot. Has never been to Inga's or AM Mart. That might be the deciding
never had
factor. He
either.
can't
Really?
taste food
Yeah.
though. Like he eats
Yeah,
it
I
so
don't know
quickly.
He
if it's
inhales.
the deciding
Yeah.
factor. I'm not sure.
We put the tray down and Noah just sat right.
You want a
in front of
bite?
it. It was just
You want a
like-
bite? Never mind.
He
How's the
felt it-
tray?
He felt that it was that I'd ordered it, and then he showed up.
Just showed up.
Hey,
There's more in the fridge, by the way.
yeah, I saw it when I came here.
You already
Right.
changed the breakfast.
Also got some cut ups from a there's some pork sausage and some chicken in there. Somebody created an Italian blend Jordy Culotta spice that they
is
made a
awesome.
presentation to me
It's cute.
yesterday in the meeting, and he
No white sauce.
no white sauce, and he covered the pork sausage
Covered your meat?
and yes, he did. He covered my meat, my
Covered
seasoning.
meat.
Gotta go to church for that.
If you're curious,
Yeah.
pick up your latest shaker.
A lot of pineapple.
But they put our logo on the bottle. It's really cute. The
Oh, yeah, it
bottle
was.
Is it they
cute.
send it
was.
to us? Do we have it here?
Yeah,
It is.
He
Yeah.
got
I
it
see it.
yesterday. It's cute. Really cute. I'm sure it's
Grab it.
tasty as well.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
I
Noah.
think Jordy's seasoning is tasty.
I knew.
Fetch it up, Noah.
That was going to keep going. I knew.
Like a dog.
Go.
Yeah.
Run.
Want some chicken?
What's that?
Speak.
Poor Noah.
All right,
Oh.
coming up tomorrow. What you got?
Did you see Brittany?
Oh, I heard.
She's
but
going after Jamie Lynn again.
I know.
And then she said, in her post, she was like, I don't know if it was an apology. I don't know what she was doing.
I don't know
but
about that.
her video, she was like, and by the way, this is for the Oops, I Did It Again part 2. And we were like, oh, yeah, like her outfit. Like, let's go, Brittany.
She
So
go
she
nude?
had clothes on?
She had clothes on.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know if I'd
change.
recognize her these days.
Not anymore.
I mean, she's a nudist.
She is.
She really is.
She's a nudist,
OnlyFans.
which I'm not judging, but I mean, it's just so out in the open.
She's like publicly naked, too.
Yes.
Like, it's
very
She's
outside.
publicly naked.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
How old is she?
she's my age. I mean, she's
good.
40.
She's good.
Yeah, she does.
Not good enough to be flashing nudes on
Yeah.
social media,
Well,
bro.
we talked about this. She thinks it's 2001. She doesn't
What's
know.
that? Which is fine.
Time
She
travel.
does like that.
Which is fine. I mean, I get that. I mean, her mind has been warped by conservatism over the last decade?
Conservatorship,
Yeah.
yes.
Conservatorship over the last decade.
Yeah. it has been.
But I have felt that they may have left her a little too early over the last couple of weeks in some of her acts, man. Maybe
She
they
needs a little help.
She doesn't need like full solitary
Yeah.
confinement, but maybe just like
Right.
a handler. Like,
Little part-time.
Like, run this by me before you
part-time,
do
yeah,
anything.
right, before
She's
you
got
hit
Beyonce.
send.
Why is he not handling
Because she's
it?
naked, and he's like, "This is great."
Well, he's probably like, what is he gonna do? If he's like, no, she's probably like, you're axed.
Out, yeah.
Right, like he's in.
don't
Take the
know,
picture and
y'all.
post it.
I don't think she has that kind of clout anymore to be acting like Beyonce.
She's got the money though.
Maybe. But
I mean,
she's
she
got
made
some issues.
so much
like,
money,
So much
bro.
money.
Are y'all
She
beating
made
down her
hundreds
door
of
to
millions
be
of no,
engaged to her?
no, not
Would
anymore.
you?
I would,
Yeah,
I would
not anymore.
take
Anymore.
a weekend, and I would see what it's like.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah,
right.
The weekend.
But that is
I don't like
different.
that.
If you can
I
make it
mean,
through
that's
3
a
days.
different mentality than like I'm going in for the full commitment or I'm going in for a weekend. It's a totally
Yeah.
different
You
mindset.
need a feel it out period with Brittany and where she is right now. You
I don't
can't
think you need it.
dive
You know
in.
who she is. She puts it out there.
This guy seems to handle it just fine. He's not
Yeah,
concerned. I don't
not
know
at
his
all.
name.
I don't even know
I
his
don't
face. If he
either.
walked in the room
Never-
right now, I wouldn't even notice. I
Could
wouldn't
be
even
Noah.
recognize it. It could be Noah.
He's like a fitness guy. He has his
could
own
be
like,
Noah.
fitness situation. It could be Noah.
He's a background dancer.
No, that was Kevin Federline.
Where's
No.
he?
Who
Living
knows?
the life, bro.
Having their kids. He's taking care of those kids. That's where he
Oh
is.
no, he got the shit into the stick.
Well, I mean, she doesn't have. She
See,
doesn't
that's
have
not worth it.
No, he's getting money from that. Are you kidding?
I don't
He's
think it's
fine.
worth it.
It's a
No,
lot of
it's fine.
money.
2? How many?
2 kids.
Yeah.
And they're like older.
And they're teenagers
boys.
now,
Yeah,
bro.
so it's not
I
like
mean, they're
he's,
out on
like,
their
changing
own.
diapers.
Don't follow
They're probably,
Bob on Instagram.
they're probably
kids.
driving
Right?
Bentley. That's the part that
Yeah.
concerns me the most.
Yeah.
Like that's the part that I would be like, yo, B, let's just take it down a couple of
Yeah.
notches for the kids, man.
Especially
I
their
mean, they're in like
boys.
school and locker rooms now. I mean, all these kids have Instagrams. I mean, you really want your kids' friends staring at your covered flower with your hand? I mean, you're just standing there with your hand over your cooch.
Covered flower.
I mean, like, can we put a bikini on if this is the look that you want to go for? Because you don't have the V that you did
Back in the
She thinks
day.
she does.
when you were on the Pepsi commercial.
She thinks she does.
Well, she needs somebody in her life. I mean, we've had this segment. We've done this segment
have.
many of times.
I'm just saying she updated
She
herself.
needs somebody in her life that's like, this is a bad idea. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
No, but I want to. No, but we're not. We're not doing. I'm not allowing you to do this again today.
You could take the SIM card out of her phone and she probably wouldn't notice for a couple of weeks.
Probably not.
She would just be
Here's
like,
a flip
"Oh,
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Snake. Thank you. Love snakes. Big snake girl.
Yeah. Right. Here.
Give her an iPad like a 10-year-old and just let her color.
Sit in the back. We're going on a road trip.
Taking you back to the conservatorship.
Speak up if you need to use the bathroom if you're hungry. Other than that, we don't want to hear a word.
I don't want to listen to Now 3.
Disable
again.
that camera for God's sakes.
This is a hit.
Twan V. Win said, "What's her number?" I don't
You
know.
can find her on Instagram.
Yeah, you can definitely hit her on
What area
Instagram.
code does she have?
IG. She's probably still with Tangipahoa. She's probably still.
you think so?
She's probably still 504.
That would be awesome.
That would be.
I mean,
I don't know why she would change.
why would you change?
Especially when your dad's running your phone bill.
Yeah, right.
Right.
She would
Can't
change
figure it
because
out.
she was embarrassed about it. She was telling people she was from New Orleans for the longest time.
Well, 504. Still
But
New
she
Orleans.
is not.
I
near-
get that play,
Kentwood
though.
is not
I get
near
that
New
play.
Orleans.
Everybody takes that's New Orleans adjacent just says they're from New Orleans.
But that's not even New Orleans adjacent. It's Kentwood.
Yeah, but what's
And
the
she went to
biggest city
school
that
in
she could have
Mississippi.
claimed? What's
I
the
don't
biggest
know.
school? I mean, what's
Macomb?
the biggest city she could have claimed
Macomb,
if it's not going to
Mississippi.
be New Orleans? I mean, it's
Well, why do you need to? Just like be who you are and say,
Fair.
this is where I'm from. I'm from a small town. I made it. Who
fair.
cares?
I get it.
Yeah, but when you're
Don't
coming
lie
up, you have
about
to
it.
be like New Orleans. It's buzzwords.
Don't have to.
Well, it worked. It worked.
Plenty of people are from small towns, and they're not claiming like the next biggest city an hour away.
I think you'd be
Weird.
shocked by the amount of people that are from small towns that claim the biggest city next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what a lot of
But
people.
it's
There's a lot
not
of people who don't know
next
where they're
to
from.
Kentwood.
I don't even know where
Can
it
we
is,
all
but it
agree on
seems
that?
close. It's
Kentwood is
5:04.
I-12.
Can you on the map back there?
Yeah, point it out on the map.
Point it out on the map. Oh
I
shit.
don't think we can do that.
We'll be back tomorrow.
No,
I don't think we can
We'll
do
be
that,
back. I
right?
think it's over here in the
Kentwood's like north of us, the Star, right?
Yep.
And then New
You would
Orleans
take
is-
I-12.
New Orleans is down here, and Kentwood's
right.
up here,
New
right?
Orleans is definitely the Gold Crescent.
Yes. So
I think
see,
you're kind of up in the Felicianas.
Should I be a weather person? I'm
This
really
is
getting this
great.
down pat. Yeah, it's not next door. Is the point? It's not next. It's at least an hour away, is it not?
I would say it's probably about a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
I'd say it's about a 45-minute drive. Hammond would be the city that she could have claimed if we're going big
she
city.
She claimed Hammond. Is Hammond a big city?
No.
No, it's
No.
just southeastern.
But it's
isn't it?
more recognizable than Kentwood.
It is
Yeah.
more recognizable than
Recognizable than
Kentwood.
Kentwood.
Yeah.
All right, good show. Hayden Pears. I'm from Central, and I claim Baton
Yeah,
Rouge.
is that allowed? Am I allowed to claim them from BR?
Yeah.
Sure. Hayden, we're gonna throw you back though. We're not gonna let you in here,
Too
bro.
small.
Yeah, right. Sorry, man. You stay out Central.
I think you can claim Baton Rouge.
Should have known
right?
it. You were a small town nerd.
I'm surprised he has the internet out
The
there.
Dirty Sea, baby.
Fact check you.
Isn't Central like considered Greater Baton Rouge area?
Sure.
Like,
Yes.
It was. It was for a long time. I mean, like they used to police out there until it became its own city. What was that? 2005, 2006.
No, he wasn't born.
Well, no, it's on the welcome sign.
Born, but
It's on the welcome sign.
I don't look at that sign.
But it says established as
on
a
the
city in
welcome
2006.
It is. Yeah, it says established.
You always
established.
notice
This
the
is a
welcome
city.
sign.
Don't you
Yes.
get it twisted. This is a city. You're in the right
The
spot.
Dirty Sea, baby.
Baton Rouge, you leave your shitty leadership, crime, education, and roads in that parish.
Man. This morning on the news, they were talking about like the effort to pick up trash around Baton Rouge,
Yeah.
around the Greater Baton
Sure.
Rouge area, and I'm like, can we like stop
Hey,
the
Sharon,
murdering first?
save it.
Like,
We don't
stop
believe a
the
word you
murders.
say.
No, we don't. Like,
Anything.
Keep us safe first, and then we'll pick
Everything
up
that
the
comes
trash.
out of Capitol Hall, out of City Hall, I mean, nothing has added up. Nothing in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge is shit. I mean, really.
Strong.
It is. I mean, like,
But we're
You know how
Stefanski
sim-
away from fixing
you
it.
know how simple
We
it is.
are.
You know how simple it is to plant like a flower bed on the exits and entrances of the interstate just to
Yeah.
kind of dress it up and make that look good,
Very simple.
right? But I mean,
Bears.
like, even that part of the city is just covered in trash and shit. All the concrete's broken up. I mean, forget the crime, forget the education, forget the traffic. They ain't never gonna get to it. I mean, like, they run on that stuff. They tell you they're gonna fix it, but nobody ever really does.
Well, and people are gonna
Right? But I
leave.
mean, like, just the low-hanging fruit of fix
can't
the
get
concrete
out.
and plant a flower bed. You know what I mean? Like, make it at least look appealing to somebody driving through. Ooh,
Power through, dude. Power through.
sorry.
So mad he's
Brought the They brought the Baton Rouge trash
Maybe
up
the
out of
Jordy
you.
Culotta show should adopt a flower bed area, beautify a little part of that.
I'd love to. However we can help. We would love to help the city of Baton Rouge get back on its feet. However we can help, we
How
would
can
love
we?
to do it.
Reach out to
Please, City Hall, if there's anything that we can do, if we can plant a flower bed, sponsor a flower bed, even our friends over at
Starting small.
Cajun Ready Mix Concrete, help you repair some of those curbs that are banged up when you get on the interstate and get off the interstate. Let's get
Ryan
those.
Hack's
I mean,
listening to this
right.
like,
This
what are you
stupid
doing?
motherfucker.
Hey, Bears Lawn Service can help with your flowers and
Right.
edges.
Do you need us to cut the interstate? A-Bears can help out. Do you need energy at Capitol Hall? We can send GoFlow up there.
Exactly.
We're all connected.
Are you hungry? City Cafe can feed you.
Do you need new buildings? R&B Builders.
They do. RMBbuilders.com.
We can all do this together. We should just get out there in bulletproof vests and start policing it ourselves.
Oh, God.
Oof,
I'm
not
not
that.
signing up for that one.
No.
My
I'm
watch is
tapping
in.
out.
scared.
I'm tapping
I went
out.
too
I'm
far.
tapping
I
out. I'm
went too
tapping
far.
out. I'm tapping out. I'm tapping
Wait,
out.
what was the glory ages of Baton Rouge? Did you ever live? If there's a time that you liked it?
Well, as a kid, I loved it, but I didn't know how crazy it was. I didn't know how wild it was, but I mean,
Well, yeah, you were hopping from pool to pool.
but like, I mean, I hate to say it, but like when I was in high school, it felt like a small town.
Yeah.
Baton Rouge really quadrupled overnight in 2005 in Katrina. I mean, and since then, I think the city has kind of functioned as a big city or a bigger city, not big, but bigger than what it was. And I don't know if the infrastructure and the organization within City Hall was prepared to start running like from a cow town to a, not cosmopolitan, but I mean, like it was a bigger city. Yeah, you had 300,000 plus people in the greater Baton Rouge area. I think, like overnight it went to like 550,000. I mean, it was crazy how the population just increased. And really, to me, I was 24 during Katrina, so I mean, I could recognize how the city functioned. And to me, since then, it's kind of been a steady downhill fall.
Yeah.
Just on the feeling of the city, the sights of the city, what the city has to offer, the crime. Like the crime, the education, and the traffic was bad. I think when my grandparents were coming up, I don't think they were. I mean, it was always an issue.
And then LSU got good, and so more kids wanted to come, and then there's just too many people here at once. It doesn't
and that
feel
was right after 2007-ish.
2003 they won their first national, second
yeah.
national championship, and then Katrina 2005, and then a national championship in 2007.
Yeah.
And it's people. I mean, it happened to Alabama when Nick Saban got there. Once they started winning, kids started flocking to go to school there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure LSU and Baton Rouge dealt with some of that same stuff.
You ought to see the river walk in Tuscaloosa. Beautiful.
we
We'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Make sure you're subscribed to Mic'd Up. Mikey Matuk's podcast will air at 11 o'clock this morning. 11 o'clock this morning on the Mic'd Up podcast YouTube page. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.